Welcome back to the Voices of Boyle. This is a special episode recorded here in Gdańsk, Poland, and joining me for this one are two remarkable young fellas, Miko Stewart, who was our guest for episode number 13, and also Cory O'Donoghue. Both of them have been based here in Gdańsk for the past 10 months, working on and building their respective online fitness coaching businesses. And in this episode, we talk about a wide variety of topics from self-awareness, personal growth, spirituality, AI, and modern-day challenges in society, to name just a few. So get ready for a bit of a roller coaster in this one. And I'd just like to point out that due to the impromptu nature of our conversation, the sound quality may not be as polished as you used to. So with that, put the feet up and relax as we get into the longest episode so far on the Voices of Boyle. Welcome to the Voices of Boyle Voti. Miko, you've been on before, back in January last year, I believe, episode number 13. So things have come on pretty well since then for you. You've grown from strength to strength. So we're all three of us are here in Gdańsk in northern Poland at the moment. So tell us a bit about how things fared out for you, Miko, after the Voices of Boyle, the last episode you were on.
So just to clarify, that was January 2023. Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, it seems like a long time ago, but a lot's definitely happened since then. Currently on a journey of mastering all aspects of myself, emotional, getting to know myself, financial. Just want to level up into the top tier human being. I feel like this year has been like the biggest year of growth for me, just because I'm going ahead to every aspect of myself that I want to level up, and I'm putting my full focus onto it. So it's been a very positive year. A lot of stuff has happened. It all feels like it's kind of come together into one day, which is funny enough. It's like, where has the time gone? But it also feels like such a long time ago. So, but yeah, very happy with my progress since that last podcast.
It feels like it's 2 years in January, and it feels like it's gone really, really quickly. It really has. And you've been, so Cory as well, you've been out here living in Gdańsk for the last 10 months straight.
10 months straight. Also, thank you for bringing me onto the podcast.
Yes, thank you very much, sir. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, making the first. I've been here since January as well. So 10 months living in Poland, doing the exact same thing as Miko pretty much, both running our fitness business. And I've also loved every minute of it. You know, it's been an incredible 10 months so far.
And so, like, obvious question would be, I know your grandparents are based here, so that would be an obvious kind of attracted you to be here. So was it the case? Were you friends before her, guys?
Yeah.
You are?
Yeah.
Then, so Cory, you just said, I moved to Gdańsk as well.
So something along the lines of that. So we made friends when we were working together in Zip-It. And we were having a conversation, and I told Miko that I was about to move online. So I was about to leave my job and go fully online in the January, move abroad. And he was the one who proposed Poland to me. In my head, I was thinking Portugal, maybe Spain. I was thinking, in my head, I was like, get me somewhere hot, get me somewhere with a little bit of heat in my back. And then he told me Poland. And at the time, I was more so thinking of, it'd be cool to just do the journey with a friend. You know, instead of going completely solo somewhere new, having someone who's about to embark on the exact same journey would be kind of cool. And then he mentioned some of the pros, and he was like, oh, it's by the beach, they have a lovely summer, there's lots of nature, and that appeals to me more than anything. And I was like, you know, I can kind of rock with that. And I was in Poland back in like 2019. So I had like an idea of my own opinion of it, and I was like, it's a nice place. So that kind of...
So what you knew what kind of...
Yeah. I was in a few places, like I was in Poznan, Wrocław, Krakow. So I had a nice idea, and Gdańsk was going to be new anyway. So I was just kind of like, fuck it. Yeah. I was like, why not? Like, I once again, as I said to you earlier, the idea of going somewhere a little bit unique appeals to me more than just going to somewhere really generic. Yeah. So I was like, why not? And
you obviously had a bit of restriction or some sort of like mental blocks around going. What were they leading up to it?
Oh God, what were they? So if I was to try and flash back, I think it was more so the idea of us moving in together, me going to Poland and then saying I don't like it, and then putting you in a position where we're both renting apartments, I'm about to pull out. It was like worst case scenario, catastrophizing, where it's like, oh God, what if I go there and I say I don't like it, and then Miko's stuck in a position. In the beginning, that's what it was, because if you're going somewhere on your own, this is your free will, your complete control of whatever happens. And then the moment you kind of merge that with somebody, if you're the one who doesn't like it on that, I think that was what was holding me back in the beginning. But then I kind of adapted to the idea it's worst case scenario, and there's going to be a million pros. Like we're already great mates. We get along fantastic. We're doing the exact same thing. The pros far outweigh the cons into where it could go.
It's funny how far we've come, because now I used to think like you used to as well, the catastrophizing, what's the worst thing that could happen? If this happens, then what? And that's the default mindset around like fear, always thinking of the worst outcome instead of the most positive. And now, since we've kind of really developed our relationship, we're both only children, and we when we first moved in together, we did this little gay exercise. We're like, let's write down our intentions for this time living together.
Yeah.
And like when I proposed that to him, I actually had so much anxiety around saying to do that, because all my other friends back home, it's just like getting cans on the weekend. There was no sense of like bonding on a deeper level, that kind of cold male relationship, not be able to say how you truly feel. But of course, when you're steaming drunk off your head, everyone says everything they want to say. But as soon as everyone's sober, it's like closed off. And so me even saying that to him, like, let's set an intention of what we want from the next 10 months. I was like, how's he going to think about it? What's he going to think of me? But he was totally on for it. And we wrote down a couple of things around like financial goals, client goals, everything we wanted from the business. And then we both wrote down something along the lines of like deepening our connection, kind of like forming a brotherhood, like both being only children. It was like kind of deep calling for like this something deeper, deeper connection. And we both like reflected on that recently after doing some crazy spiritual endeavors together and like trying new things out in life, that we're like, man, like I fucking see you as a brother, And that was so cool to see that come together, because we were quite like opposite personalities for the first few months. Like I was like seriously emotionally unstable, like having lots of ups and downs, like in the pits of hell, and super up here, like driven and motivated. And Cory was just cruising this fucking flat line, not flat line, but just like so stable, And it was so polar opposites. And I always question like, why am I so connected? Like, why are we drawn to each other? But then like once we like unburdened a lot of like the personality stuff and connected on a deeper level, we're like the exact same. And many people have said it to us, like our energies are very similar. We did this online retreat, and this woman, I did it first and then Cory did it after. And this woman on the retreat, she's like, oh, because I became friendly with her. She said, oh, there's this other Irish guy who's on and you guys are like the exact same. And I was like, oh yeah? I was like, what's his name? She's like, Cory. I was like, yeah, I know, he's my best friend. And she's like, no way, and the fact that they just seemed we were so similar, it was so cool. So very happy with like how our relationships developed just from experiencing a lot in a short time.
So when you came to Gdańsk first, Miko, did you have was your online business functional then, or were you just getting started?
Just getting started. Like I left Zipit, saved up a decent amount of money. I sold my car. So I came over with, it sounds like very basic, like you're just moving to a different country in Europe. I had family support around me. Like I was living by myself, like in shared accommodation, but it was more of an energetic thing around, okay, I'm leaving the comfort zone of a 9 to 5 with stable salary, and I'm embarking on a complete gamble of building my own business. So like I was very nervous for the first few months, and it took a while to like let those nerves settle, just because of the inconsistencies. I had so much like things to work on myself, my relationship with myself, that carried over reflecting on the business. So it's very difficult, but it's really come together now in terms of a bit more faith and bringing it together. And the journey, that's what's really brought the most out of me, is that learning experience with the process of growing a business. Like it levels you up as a human. It's not about the financial outcome. It's like the skills that you develop along the way are insane. Like it's so invaluable.
And Cory, your business was up and running prior to coming to Gdańsk.
Yeah, so my business is up and running since January 2023. So I was already working in a gym at the time, and I had like some in-person PT. And then I got my online going into January of 2023. And then January 2024 was when I moved like fully online. At that time, I had like already it was already relatively stable. Like I'd already hit enough months, which confirmed to me that if I was to move away, that I would be okay in that position. There was no red flags. I was definitely not in Miko's position where he just had that full faith and trust, that I was like, no, I need to hit 6 months of consistent something before I chance taking that leap of faith. Bit of a different character sense.
Well, for me, if I didn't have that external pressure, I wasn't as motivated. While I was working in Zip It, it was like growing the business was a side hustle, and I'd come home tired, trying to fit in, making all my own food, getting to work, going to the gym. The mental energy just wasn't there. And I had the mindset in my head is like, if I fully remove everything else, like how much can I grow? That was a bit of delusion because like I've realized it's just so much learning along the way. No matter how much time you have, there's constantly going to be ups and downs. But definitely, like, I've made a commitment to myself. I'm not going to go back and work a 9 to 5. Like, I'm going to make this work. So having that all or nothing mentality is so important, I think, because it removes the thing to fall back on, and it really gives you that fire under your ass to make it work. So I think it's very beneficial for anybody to like not half-ass stuff. Just go for it, because you'd be surprised at like what can come out of you when you're like, you have to make it work.
Yeah.
So
then for people that are listening that don't understand that, so you're both in the same industry, you're both online fitness coaches.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe just give us kind of a snapshot of what that actually is, what it entails, who your clients are, who's your ideal client. So
well, I can give a breakdown of the difference between like an in-person PT session and an online session, because I think that's where the biggest difference actually comes in. And when you're somebody who is going to a one-to-one PT session in that gym, you're paying for that person's hour. So let's say it's €40. You get 1 hour of the coach's time. You go through all like the foundational level exercises and stuff. That coach may or may not give you like a meal plan or something to follow like outside of that. The other 151 hours of the week, you're by yourself and you're kind of doing your own thing. The online coaching steps in as it's very hands-on, as 7 days a week sort of, and you're much more in depth, so everything gets covered. You're having communication with your coach more frequently, but you get given like your, say, workout plan, the meal plan, but it's the monitoring of everything that which I think makes the difference. So you're monitoring sleep, energy, daily calories, water intake, all the metrics that make a difference to how someone feels and behaves. And that's what really amounts to the benefits of it. Whereas once again, if you're just looking at in-person PT, you're learning 100% how to train in the gym, which is super, super effective. But if you're looking for like an actual lifestyle change, if you're looking like for, in my opinion, a proper transformation, then the online is what really delivers that, because you're just covering everything. There's no stone left unturned when it comes to that.
I totally agree. Like if anyone who's trying to get in shape and they go to the gym, there's kind of this mentality like, oh, I've been to the gym today, I'm still not getting results, because you've showed up for 1 hour, but like everything else that you're trying to achieve, fat loss, muscle building, it's all happening behind the scenes. And the beautiful thing of online coaching is everything's like monitored with metrics and data. So it removes like kind of the guessing game or emotions. Like if we're looking at the numbers and they're moving in the right direction, it's very easy to coach and give feedback on a week-to-week basis to really guide the client in the direction they need to move in. Like everything is on display. Our systems have been developed to make it very efficient, like less than 30 minutes per week in terms of giving the coach what they need. And it makes everything on display so that no stone gets left unturned. Because there's always these little factors, like someone could be trying to lose weight, but they're just really bad at tracking calories. Like they pick all the wrong options. They track cooked pasta instead of dry pasta. These little things add up. And people might think they're in a calorie deficit, they're trying to lose weight, but these little factors are what cause people to not make progress, especially if someone's like hypersensitive genetic wise. So that's what online coaching comes into play, is just very, very in-depth. And you get a lot more out of it if you're looking for a serious transformation, opposed to giving someone 40 to 60 euro for 1 hour of their time in the gym. And it's usually like someone who's not that qualified when it comes to all the other stuff behind the scenes. So it's the reason why online coaching is like took off for.
Well, there's a big part as well as that actual accountability part.
Huge.
There is no escape.
Everything. It's the accountability part that kind of almost holds someone's hand and gives them that like, I have to do this or else.
Well, actually, like I'm a coach and I'm working with a coach at the moment, and I'm very disciplined with my training. However, work has kind of come in and kind of taken more of a dominance in my life. And with that, I can naturally gravitate to push the workouts out. Like they still get done, but I'm just not as structured with it. But knowing that someone's there and I have to like adhere to the plan not for them, but just knowing that they're kind of looking over my shoulder in a way, it gives you that extra little bit of a kick, just psychologically, even if you are very disciplined. And there's a lovely quote from Alex Hormozy explaining accountability, where he says, like, when you were a child, I'm sure you didn't want to brush your teeth, but your mum and dad kept nagging you. They kept like holding you accountable, making sure you did it. And now that you're an adult, you do it without even thinking about it. And it's the same with coaching. If you're not disciplined, you lack the proper habits, the structure, you're very easy swayed by your emotions to give up. Having someone there to keep you accountable, make sure that like we rationalize everything so you're not getting caught in your head. Then slowly with the support, you develop the habits of like brushing your teeth, and it sticks with you a lot easier. But that beginning stage is so crucial to have that support structure in place, because that's when you're the most fragile, the most unstable. And a lot of people that do see phenomenal results within the coaching recognize the benefits of it, even if they are disciplined and they want to continue on for 6 months to a year anyways. So it is very beneficial. Like a lot of people just get coaches just for the ease of access, of saving the mental energy, of not having to think about what to do. And you save it for work, family. That's the beautiful thing about it. It's just hand it off.
And you mentioned there about, clients see phenomenal results. And I've seen on both your Instagrams, you put up before and after pictures of some of your clients. So like typically, what kind of, like, you are changing people's lives, as you said, when it comes to that sort of stuff, because it can play on people's minds so much when it comes to their weight and stuff like that. So what's a typical kind of outcome from someone that follows? And first of all, how long is a typical program? Or is it like ongoing, or is it like an initial 6 weeks, 8 weeks?
So this is always going to be person dependent, but when you're thinking of any transformation, like, it has to be longer term. Like if you're getting something in 4 weeks, that's the ultimate quick fix. What kind of fad diet, extreme limits do you have to go to get that result in 4, 8, 12 weeks? If you're asking for a proper lifestyle change where you're implementing something that is going to last you, like, you don't want to lose 10 kg and then regain it for your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s and never go back to being healthy. If you lose that 10, 15, 20 kg or get into like that phenomenal shape that you want to be in, you want to maintain that for the next 40 years. That's not something you just want to lose. But the transformation itself can be anywhere between 12 weeks and onwards. I wouldn't say typically you would see like drastic changes before the 3-month mark, but it's a question of like, how much are you willing to change in that transformation? Because you can lose a moderate amount of weight and be very, very content with that, which in my opinion isn't the route to go down. It's more so go for it and really do something that you're proud of, that's long lasting. There's no point half-arsing it and just losing 7 kg when you can do something amazing with 15. And that's where the timeline comes in. It's like, how committed is that person to really lasting long-term change in themselves, where they're building up habits, not only changing the physique, the mindset, really doubling down on nutrition education, really doubling down on training education, and then thinking further again. So the big thing I would say is your vision. If your vision only stretches to you losing 8 kg and you lose 8 kg in 12 weeks, you're going to think you're done. When in reality, you have to be able to stretch your vision past that, because if your goal is only to lose 8, we can guarantee you're going to lose 8. It's not a question of if, it's literally just a question of when. Yeah. So you're going to get to that goal. And what happens after you hit that goal is you've done it, and now you've no reason to carry on. So the number one thing you have to address is your vision. How far do you want this to go? Do you really want this to last for your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s? Do you really want to become the person that you have in the forefront of your mind? And once you adapt that mindset and vision, then the timeline is going to vary from person to person. The initial change is 12 weeks, in my opinion, at a bare minimum. But if you're somebody who wants that long-term vision and you actually see something for yourself that is like attainable, but it requires work, then we have clients working with us for a year plus.
You're big on mindset. I remember you saying that to me in your initial podcast we did. And like, the mindset why someone is out of shape is the same mindset that wants quick, fast results. Like that whole quick thing is the reason you're out of shape right now, because you're always looking for the easy route. But as we all know, like, anything meaningful in life is not supposed to be easy. It's meant to be consistent effort over a long period of time. And people just don't like to hear that. They want the quick results. And that's why we are quite good at our jobs and we can get those results in 12 weeks, which is phenomenal, because what that does is provides motivation. It's very hard to keep trucking on when you're not seeing results. But when the results are delivered, and then our job is to really paint the longer term vision for the client, makes them think about, oh yeah, fuck, I did this in 12 weeks. What could I do in 12 months? You plant that seed, because people just don't believe in themselves. Like, you might be listening to this. Like, if you don't set big goals or standards for yourself, you're always going to be working in a small box. Like, you've been quite successful with your business, Carlo. Like, if you only thought about reaching a certain small amount of money per month or whatever it is, that's always going to be your limit. But as soon as you break past that and you open up into this bigger box, suddenly there's a whole world of possibilities that people just didn't think possible. And the reason why they don't think like that is because of the friend group they're in, the work environment. Everyone just keeps themselves safe. And that's like, luckily enough, me and Cory push ourselves out of our comfort zone all the time. I mentioned at the start of this podcast, like I'm looking to level up every single bloody aspect of myself to become the ideal version of me, like everything. And when you have that mindset and you're passionate about it, and you also combine that with helping people, having that support structure there for you in terms of coaching, and that's the kind of person you're conversating with on a week-to-week basis, and they're planting those kind of ideas in your head, that opens up people's minds to a bigger horizon, and then they can tap into their inner potential that they always had, but they just didn't have the environment to unlock it. And that's kind of what both our coaching models really embody, is that tap into that inner potential that you have so much in you, but you just need to open up your mind to that potential.
I would love to share a story of a prime example of that. So I have a client on at the moment, and he started with me in January, and his original goal was just to lose 10 kg. And you can fast track to his current position now. He's 2 weeks away from running his first ever half marathon. And in the beginning, that was inconceivable. Like, to him, he just wanted to lose 10. And in that time, you've doubled the amount of weight he's lost, and you've now opened his vision to be able to go way beyond that, running a half marathon, getting into like some seriously good shape, where in the beginning that was inconceivable. In the beginning it was like, oh, I just want to lose 10 kg. I just want to get back down to a little bit smaller than I was before. And it's just a matter of stretching your vision. And he's almost 1 year into the coaching, and he's probably going to extend that as well, just because of the vision and the goals that he set. Whereas if his original goal stuck to 10 kg, the timeline would have never.
He probably put back on that 10 kg by now.
Yeah.
And so then, how do you deal as coaches then for someone that comes along to be great in the first maybe 7, 8 weeks? They hit a natural plateau where your body isn't maybe responding as quickly as it was in those first 6, 7 weeks, which is only a natural.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find that some clients, they hit that wall, if you like?
Absolutely.
It's like,
definitely. Well, that's the beauty of working with someone, because it's very easy to compare your progress when it's moving fast, but like, we're all about noticing the small wins. And like, if energy is up, you're sleeping better, you're more positive, you're better work ethic when it comes to your job, you're more productive, you're getting more stuff done. They're huge factors behind the scenes of why we encourage this kind of lifestyle that carries over. And a lot of the time people are actually making progress, they just don't really find ways to notice it. And highlighting that is very important. Plus, like, we've got a lot of strategies in place to help people push through plateaus, working with different like training phases. So if someone's starting to plateau in a weight loss phase, you go back up, let their body like reset, go again. A lot of people wouldn't even think to do that. They just become very emotional and think, oh, I'm not losing weight anymore, what's the point? And they start stuffing my face again. Whereas no, it's just, you've done very well. Now we just need to take a breather, let our body reset and go again. And that's the benefit of working with a professional. It's just a lot more structured compared to going through the day-to-day motions by yourself.
And Miko said there about highlighting all the wins. There is literally countless metrics involved to your progress. And the one thing everybody gets obsessed on is 3 digits on a scale. Like, 3 numbers is going to halt you in your tracks is crazy. And it's just a question of opening that vision up to seeing everything, whether it's measurements, whether it's visuals, whether it's energy, performance, strength in the gym. There's literally countless ways of being able to highlight what somebody's doing. But I think a lot of the time as well, what really stops the people who are about to hit that plateau is once they hit that plateau, it's their own limiting beliefs that begin to kick in. It's not a question of like they hit this plateau, and the ones who can push past that are the ones who still have that like kind of belief structure in place that they can do something. It's always the person, typically speaking, who just suffers a little bit more with doubts, limiting beliefs, and just like that kind of self-imposed limitation. And that's another thing that you kind of have to highlight to a lot of people, because the moment people hit that plateau, it's like, oh my God, I'm going to fail. I'm not here anymore. They stop tracking, they stop committing, because it's like they've already given up in their head. And a key thing that you have to highlight to people, typically speaking, if you're in that position in the first place, there's like breadcrumbs that have led to that. And them same breadcrumbs kind of come to the surface when you hit that plateau a little bit more. And you have to just help that person see from like a third person looking in, where it's like, look at all the things you've just done. You've had great progress for 6 weeks. Okay, you've hit a slow path for 2. Look at every other metric that you've achieved, that you've completed, and now you're stuck on 3 numbers. Like, that's crazy. That's really, really crazy. And you kind of have to reiterate their achievements to them, I believe anyway, to just help them re-navigate this plateau, because it is common and it happens to everybody. Like, it's so hard not to get obsessed with 3 digits.
Well, it happens to me.
Yeah.
Like, not scale weight, but just general progression in a lot of things.
Yeah.
You become so obsessed with the progress in that one area, and you forget, like, fuck, I feel amazing right now. You know, every other area of my life is booming, but you get tied down to this one little bullshit thing.
And then do you find that some clients, they as you said, Miko, they turn up for an hour in the gym, right?
Mm.
And that's fine. They think to go home then and to stuff their face. So some people can not get out of the way of that. A big part of the fitness challenge and goal is your diet.
Mm.
You know, we all kind of know that now, that you can train in the gym all you want, but it's what you're going to the kitchen. So how do you kind of motivate people to try and, because it can be pretty hard, like, to get away from eating the snacks and stuff. How do you kind of motivate people to stop going down that road?
For me, it's not motivation, it's education. It's a lack of knowledge. Like, you can, depending on what your goals are, like if you're trying to build muscle and you're trying to put on weight, size, you've got a bit more, like, you can allow for more food in your system. And as long as it's healthy food and it's foods that are in line with your goals. I eat so clean. Like, I don't eat any sugar anymore. I love my food. I eat the same meals all the time. This isn't about feeling restrictive. I just have other priorities outside of food. Like, I care more about my hours of work, my performance in the gym, and I create meals that I love. And it just comes down to education, like knowing what are the right foods for your goals. You can be eating healthy and not losing weight because you're just eating too many calories. People eat a lot of like high fat foods, nuts, avocados, whole eggs, full fat yogurts. All these things are healthy, but they just have a shit ton of calories. And people think they're eating healthy, but they're not losing weight. It's because of that lack of education. So once you educate the client, we build like custom meal plans around their foods that they already enjoy. So it fits seamlessly into their life, opposed to getting some crazy fancy meal plan with sprouts, alfalfa beans and couscous. Like, what the fuck is this? No, it's like built around their diet, as long as it's nutritionally dense foods, education around like balanced approach, 80% whole food, nutritious foods, 20% some of the other stuff, so you don't go insane. And I think once you educate someone and they know how to like structure their meals, implement like calorie tracking, the motivation isn't necessarily is needed as much because there's a lot of structure around it. And people start to realize, like, fuck, I feel amazing on what I'm eating right now. And you don't realize how good you can feel. And once you start to feel amazing and then you increase a bit of sugar or you eat a full packet of crisps and your energy drops, something switches inside. You're like, oh, this is actually shit. You know, what am I doing? But if you're eating crap all the time, you don't even get that chance to realize that. You know, I'd be very sensitive to sugar right now. I'd feel my energy drop because I don't eat it. Yeah. And it's not by like I'm restricting myself. I just genuinely feel so much better off it. Like, I eat honey, fruits, and I love them. Like, I put a bit of honey in my oats, and when I get to taste it, it tastes class, you know, because my stimulus for like, and this is coming from a guy who used to smoke weed every night for like 10 years. I'd wake up with chocolate digestive biscuits stuck to my chest. Because I've fallen asleep with these chocolate biscuits on my chest, right? I wake up at 4 a.m. and go and raid the fridge eating sugary yogurts just because I had this sugar demon in me. So I'm not talking like I'm some raised health freak. Like, I've been there. I've lived both lifestyles to the extreme, and I just know how good you can feel. So once you highlight the ways that you can make your meals tasty, that are in line with your goals, and you experience how good you can feel, that's what really drives motivation, in my opinion, around like sticking to your diet. It just comes from common sense, really.
And I think it takes, Cory, it takes a long time for people to, as Miko said, get to the stage of cutting out all those sugary ingredients, because once your body gets to a certain stage where it starts to feel, it craves the proper food, if you like, it can be hard then to switch back because you feel like shit then after.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'd actually say that majority, if not all, clients, once they start the healthy diet, the first thing they say is that I'm not craving any sugar. I'm not craving any takeaways. And it's normally one of the first things that people will say as soon as they're into the program, where it's like straight away they're addressing the eating habits. And it's like, I'm already feeling better. I'm already feeling more energy. And it kind of cancels out. The one thing I will say is when that stuff creeps back in, it's typically because of maybe an external event. Something triggers the mood, something triggers something that's gone in their personal life, and their natural resort is to go back into the food, which does happen, and it is actually normal. And I wouldn't say it's like the worst thing in the world, because something like that takes a lot longer to remove than just being able to eat clean forever. So sometimes that could creep back in. And of course, when that happens, it's just a matter of being open with the coach or addressing that situation as it is, where this external situation has happened and this week I've done X. And it's just like, okay, right, whatever's happened there. And then you address it, kind of reiterate why you kind of go back to the clean, healthy eating. Previously state like, okay, so this is what everything was the way before. Now you're feeling like this, and the diet is this, and now you're also feeling like this. And you just got to reconnect the dots to get back on path again.
I'd like to touch on what you said about like emotional eating. I realized, like, from my own traumas that I mentioned here on the podcast before, like a lot of demons inside me, that like when I hit low points of stress, just confusion in my life, depressive energy, I gravitate towards stuff that makes me feel better. Now, from the majority of my life, it was like drugs, alcohol, weed, gaming, porn, all this stuff that was like just super toxic, but provides this escape to the extreme. And since I've been doing like my healing journey of like lots of different stuff, facing my fears, doing therapy, different spiritual practices, I've started to unburden myself of these demons. And when I hit these low moods, like I still come up at these depressive periods, the stuff I gravitate towards is a lot lighter. And I've realized that when you unburden yourself from all the shit that's you've built up through past experiences, childhood traumas, whatever it is, the things that you gravitate towards aren't actually you. Like, people say that we need to enjoy life and, oh, it's just a biscuit here and there. But the thing that's calling you to want to have this is coming from a place within you that's not feeling full. Like, you're not feeling whole within yourself. That's why you're gravitating towards like sugar, alcohol, drugs, whatever it is, to get that feeling of feeling whole. And once you start to like clear that shit out of your system, like all these addictions just disappear. So I've realized it's not a part of being alive that you have to fight this stuff off. When you can completely like connect to who you are and like heal yourself in that way, all this stuff really disappears. And emotional eating typically comes from avoiding a feeling. I feel this way right now, so I'm going to do this, eat this, take this to avoid that feeling. So something we did online called The Journey is an online practice, very powerful stuff around like connecting to yourself. One of the things I mentioned is like, what's the worst that can happen if I feel this feeling? Like, next time you feel like this calling to stuff your face with a bag of Doritos, ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? And what might I risk feeling if I don't eat the Doritos? Because what's going to happen is you're going to be left with a feeling. It might be irritability, boredom, anxiousness, whatever it is. And what happens if you just felt it? Once you like remove the fear of like, I can't feel this feeling, and you actually just feel it to the max, it starts to like not have as much control over you. And you start to separate from your feelings. Because in reality, like, you're not your thoughts, you're not your feelings. There's something else to you behind all that. And once you can develop the understanding and the disconnect from it, it doesn't control you as much. Because a lot of people that give into emotional eating, it's just a lack of being present in themselves. It's just chaos and they just give in. So just ask yourself, like, what would I risk feeling if I didn't give in? If I just sat there and felt it? Because you're not going to die. You're going to be fine. Like, you might get a bit angry or start crying or something, but that's it. That's the worst that's going to happen. So just sit with that and you'll develop the control. That's from my personal experience anyway.
That's a good way of looking at it. In business then, as we know, guys, there's always ups and downs. There's positives, there's negatives, there's hurdles, obstacles. In your opinion, you've been in business a couple of years, whatever, what would be maybe positives, one positive each and an obvious negative of an online business? Not specifically maybe your specific business, but in general, as a business, what would you think?
I'll let you take this one, Cory.
Yeah.
So starting off with the positive, I guess a bit more clarity on your question. Is this like the positive of like any aspect of it, where it's specifically online?
Exactly, because exactly.
The digital nomad.
The digital nomad.
Hey, digital nomad.
So for me, the number one thing has been experience. Like, if it was not for this online business, I would not got to have experienced a year just living abroad for myself and funding the whole thing myself, which gives definitely a sense of pride in that as well. So for me, that's the feeling of experience and the emotion that's attached to that, which is like that little bit of like, oh yeah, I'm in this situation right now. This is pretty cool, you know. The negative, I would say, is the sense of overwhelm, actually, where, especially in the beginning, you're moving from a job where you know exactly how much you're earning into an environment where you don't know what's coming in the next month. So that as a new emotion came with like new stress. So I hadn't experienced that before. So there was definitely a higher stress rate with a lot more anxiety in the beginning. And as you kind of move through that, that's eased off a lot. But then the more you move into business, you see the more there is that has to be done. All the different areas that need to be capitalized on, whether it's marketing, the content, the lead generation, the coaching itself, increasing your knowledge as a coach. There's a million different areas that just require your knowledge and attention. And that then is like, oh, Jesus.
You're many different hats.
Yeah. You have to cover them all. And that in itself has, yeah, it's crazy. And that in itself creates overwhelm. And that would be the one thing that I would say is the biggest disadvantage. There is no really switch off that I've noticed for me so far this year. I don't really go home and think I've something that I don't have to do. And there's no days off that I'm taking. It's like, oh, I've actually got a couple of free hours here. It's like being, the way I can say it is like when I was in college, when you're in university and you have these assignments coming up, there's this like dark cloud that's always hanging over you. You're in your free time and you're like, oh shit, I have to write that thesis. Like, I don't have time to be wasting here. When you transition into this life, the same thing I've noticed is just this dark cloud of guilt that's hanging
All the
there.
time.
And it's like, you know what? You've just done this for 2 hours. You've 3 hours left in the evening. You should do X. And it's just that guilt comes in and you're like, oh, okay, back to the desk. So yeah, that'd be my two.
Like your negative is also a positive though.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that we have to do sales, social media managing, outreach, managing clients, advertising, a million other things,
Content creation,
everything. Think of how much our skills have leveled up in that time. Like that's something that I love about this is it's fucking hell. I'm going to be honest. Like I fucking hate it. I love it so much, but I hate it because like Cory said, you cannot shut off. Like I'm literally beating myself up. If I'm not working until the moment I go to sleep, I can't shut off because I'm like, there's someone else out there who's working harder than me, you know, that mentality of like, you can always do more because I've identified who I don't want to be very clearly. I know the kind of person I don't want to be. And it's the person who puts in minimal effort. And I compared myself to who I want to be. And I look up to these people online and I see how they're living. It's like, if you want to get to somewhere, don't listen to the people that aren't where you want to get to. If you listen to their advice, you're fucking yourself over because if you want to be like them, listen to them. But if you don't want to be like them, don't take it on board because they don't understand what it takes to get to this other position. So with that, when you compare yourself to these people online and they're working the 14-hour days and they're saying no days off and they're saying you always have one more in you, you can keep going for longer. And that's what they did to get to where they're going to. It makes sense. But that mindset is like impregnated in my skull and I can't get it out. And it's unhealthy because even my work is redundant. And I'm going around in circles and I'm not making progress and I'm like overthinking something. I can't seem to like catch that and realize this is not productive work. You need to take a break, go for a walk. It's like, no, if I go for a walk, I'm wasting time. I could be working. So it's like, not being able to shut off is really difficult.
Yeah.
I love it though.
Yeah.
But
that's one thing that, you know, working online now for self-employed, it's been 10, 12 years. That's the one thing that you both commented on. And I don't think that changes.
Let's go.
Fantastic.
I mean, it'll change for everyone. But at the end of the day, when you are working for yourself or you have your own businesses, you are you are those businesses.
You're very connected to it.
You are. And even if you get someone to fill some time in doing this, or you get an editor for your content, you still have to oversee that. So that's part and parcel. And I think it's not going to change for any time soon, because if it does, well, then there are certain businesses.
I think the key is being obsessed about what it is you're doing. If you feel like, because we're like getting into like more spiritual stuff lately, and I hate that term because it makes it demonized or like these wacky people. But in reality, like we're all energy, we're all alive on this planet. When we die, our souls leave our bodies. Like we're all aware there's something going on here. And we all crave this feeling of purpose. You know, the reason why people are unhappy in life, they gravitate towards drugs, alcohol, porn. I read a study, I heard it on a podcast, that the most common trait between men who are avid porn users was a lack of purpose. So when a man does not have that inner fulfillment and that direction in life, he just resorts to this demonic stuff that's keeping him stuck. So if you're super purposeful, connected to your work, and you don't see it as a job, you see it as this is my life's mission. Whatever it is that you're doing, you're just obsessed about, and you feel it to your core that this is why you've been put on this planet. It's very easy to suffer those 14, 16-hour days because you're like, this is everything, you know? Whereas if it's for a company, or even if it's for yourself, but it's work you're not super passionate about and it still feels like a job, then that becomes very grueling. So I've been trying to connect more and more to my own self in my business and really connect to it on a deeper level. And I have been doing, and that's what's really driven my energy and my motivation for it, is because I feel like the purpose behind it of like helping people connect to themselves, better their lives, heal themselves, that hits me on a deeper level. That's very motivating and goes past the paycheck. You know, it's not a superficial thing, and it's very deeper driven. So that's what gets me fired up. like to do this work, and that's what allows me, because like 14-hour days, like that's not an easy task. But when you're operating from a different space, it's like having 10 cups of coffee. Like it comes from a different place, and that's very easy to push through then, from my experience.
So we had a conversation the other day, and we were for a while, and you were talking about spirituality, and you mentioned was it a retreat or in Holland that you went on? The shaking retreat. Tell, because I found that very fascinating, and I thought, between the two of you can rehash it out again here for listeners.
All right, put on the spot now, and it's gonna make me dial in my vocabulary skills and
look at this whack job.
Put it together. Boo! He's crazy.
Oh, he's nuts.
He's nuts. This is what's hilarious, right? I forget what my old life used to be like. Like, this was the biggest shame of my life. My parents have been doing the shaking meditation for 12 years. Like, they do it every Friday night, and it's quite expressive in terms of like the vocals, singing, laughing, like positive stuff that like your body wants to let out through energy, but people get so blocked off in their life that they can't do it. So when they were out shaking, I was out smoking weed. It's like, while they're doing this, I can go do my own thing. But I'd have friends over, right, on those evenings who might be staying the night, and I'd like always make sure we'd be very far away from when they were doing their stuff, and they'd hear them laughing their heads off, and they're like, man, your parents are definitely out there riding or something. Because they'd have groups of friends over as well. It sounds crazy, but anyways, if we just talk about spirituality as a whole, like I've sort of connected to that when I started doing like this type of therapy called IFS. It's called Internal Family Systems, and it's about recognizing that there's different parts of you within you. So the Carlo who's a fully grown adult is you. However, there's still childlike parts in you that cause you to react and act in different situations in your life. So let's say a teacher was really mean to you in school and he challenged your work, saying it wasn't good enough. And then let's say you're working in a company and the boss in the company said your work wasn't good enough, and you react emotionally. That's not the adult Carlo reacting. That's the 12-year-old Carlo reacting, okay? When you have that understanding, you start to realize that there's a lot of stuff going on inside you, a lot. And when you start to connect on a deeper level, it becomes addictive. It's like, you're like, what else is there, So spirituality, I don't think, is this crazy whack job stuff. We all have it inside us, but no one actively talks about it. First of all, because it's difficult. Second of all, because it gets demonized from back in the day, like people are crazy, all this stuff. And if the whole world was spiritual, there's not going to be any wars, there's not going to be any corruption, there's going to be no greed, there's going to be no sickness of government. So it's not the most profitable thing to promote in society. Like when it comes to psychedelic drugs, connecting with yourself on a deeper level, realizing that we are all connected, that does not fit the agenda in the world at all. So that's why it doesn't get promoted. So shaking is like meditation on steroids. It's like, from what I've experienced from everyone who does the practice, has done other practices in their life, it is the quickest way to really get that real deep connection to like your soul or who you are very fast. Like, it's a very focused way. So the premise behind it is shaking your body. Now, when an when an animal gets injured, they naturally shake. They like or vibrate, with some traumatic experience. If you're a child, you can like start shaking. Yeah. It's the body's natural response to kind of pain or trauma. That's how it just kicks in to play, because it builds up energy, and that energy is actually quite healing for your system. So the shaking practice originated in Bali. And when you stand and shake your body with intention, connecting to a certain picture of the guy who basically founded this practice in Bali, very spiritual, sacred guy. There's also this sacred tobacco that you take that's been blessed in Bali. And there's a lot of powerful mantras. When you combine all four of those things put together, it's like a Wi-Fi password to your soul. As crazy as that sounds, but it is like a systematic thing put in place. Just like we go to the gym, we train with rep ranges and different machines. This is a system put in place to work out your energy and your soul. Because you need it, like, it's there within us all the time. We're walking around right now. Like, the stuff I'm talking about is in you right now. But we don't have access to it because we don't know how to get to it with our conscious minds. So this system has been put in place to direct that approach to it. And when that energy builds up within you, it expresses itself in lots of different ways. Your body moves in different ways. Laughter comes up, sadness comes up. But basically what it does is the energy becomes so strong within you that it pulls stuff from the depths. Could be your traumas, could be all the things about you gets pulled to the surface, and it gets basically worked through. And you basically level up into the highest version of yourself by unburdening yourself of all the shit that's been put on you throughout your life from past experiences, childhood, whatever. So it's a very deep practice for healing, but it's also very powerful for just that connection to yourself. Like, you might not have as much trauma stuff like that I did or other people have, but in terms of like that connection to like a life source for true happiness and fulfillment, it's phenomenal. And it's extremely crazy. For the conscious mind, you want to retreat. You don't want to do it. You're like, this is insane. Everyone goes through it at the start. Like, I don't want to be here. These people are fucking crazy. It's all part of the process when you have to move into a different way of being, but it's super, super powerful.
And to break it down into like an aspect of it that's a little bit simpler, you might be, whoever's listening might be thinking like, why? What's the purpose of that? Every experience that you have, negative or any, no matter how small or big it is, it gets stored in your body. So essentially, people who can't express themselves verbally, maybe they got shut down a lot as a child, or maybe they had some needs that weren't met. In this sense, their energy is putting a block in their expression as an adult. So they can't express how they feel in a current moment because they're typically blocked, the energy block. The shaking releases the specific blocks. Now, you obviously can't control which block you're removing, but you're shaking, and the energy itself at this moment in time is removing something. And you could have, I don't know how many blocks are going on in the body, but each experience that you have tends to leave an imprint somewhere inside. And that shaking allows you to just gradually remove each one by one to a degree. Like, you know, you're shaking off, you're loosening the block that you do feel. So when Miko's talking about the emotions that are coming up, oftentimes they're attached to whatever block is being removed. So when you are feeling the sadness come up from the shaking or whatever, typically speaking, it's just you shifting something that you've suppressed for a long time, and it's now having access of a way of coming to the surface.
So, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, before you talked about it the other day, I'd actually never heard about it.
Mm.
And you were saying that each of those sessions is like a 2-hour session.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
I found that kind of like
crazy.
I did. I was like, oh, geez, that's crazy.
Yeah.
But if the benefits are there and you get into the zone and you're kind of unlocking that inner potential, I mean, them 2 hours, I presume, would fly.
Yes and no. If you're sitting there and it sucks, like you're dealing with a lot of pain, because this is what I'm trying to make everyone understand. Working out, living healthy, trying to be successful financially with business, it's all difficult. Yeah, it all requires you to go through something. But that's why it's there. It's meant to be there to challenge you, because that is what provides the experience, levels you up. So the 2 hours could be complete bliss of you laughing your head off, having a great time. You've unburdened yourself. Or it could be 2 hours of your back is in absolute bits because you've got a block coming up and it's manifesting in your spine and you're stuck in your mind and you can't like connect, and there's so much process going on that you just hate it. It's the longest 2 hours ever. It's so up and down because there's a lot going on in our systems. Like, we only have access to whatever percent of our brain. Our bodies are super complex. Like, there's a lot going on. So every experience is different. It is 2 hours. There's no set time. Like, I wake up, I shake sometimes for 10 minutes, do some other ones that are like an hour long, but the retreats, typically you go there with purpose. When I go there, I treat it like I'm going there to, like, it's a camp. It's like it's a camp, a workout camp. Like, I'm going for a fighting camp. You know, I'm not here to mess around. I'm here to give it my all, suffer through the pain, suffer through whatever needs to be done, so that when I leave, I've leveled myself up a little bit more. I'm not going there to have fun. I do have fun, but I'm going there for a different reason. It's like an investment into my future.
And I think then, is there a case of muscle memory then? So if you were to go back to another retreat, for example, would you have a muscle memory when it comes to maybe tapping in quicker? Is that kind of like a meditation?
Yeah, but it's constant. It's every day. Like, if you maintain it, you've got a connection to this soul energy that's within you. And it's like being religious but having the ultimate faith.
Yeah.
Like, you feel connected, you feel looked after, you feel connected to what is life, this life source that's in us all. And maintaining that, you can maintain that on a day-to-day basis. But then when you go to the retreats, if you've stayed in the energy throughout that, you'll tap in a lot quicker. But if you stop shaking for like 2 months in between the retreats, definitely might build up a bit more.
Yeah, because like, you know, Tony Robbins.
Mm-hmm.
I remember he had a documentary out on a couple of years ago on Netflix, and just thinking of that there now, he has a routine in the morning where he gets up, first thing he does for 10 minutes. He's kind of like shaking his hands around in the air and he's pumping, you know, kind of almost like getting pumped up for the day. Is it a kind of form of that when you say shaking? Is it something like, you know, you're throwing your arms around or is it a more mechanical?
I'll demonstrate. It's very basic. It's just slight movement. Like it just comes from the hips. Just basically, but like you're initiating an eighth of a squat, just bending the knees and allowing your body to rock. And when you actually like stand and you connect to the energy, you don't even need to shake. It does it for you. And
So it's just that slide.
It's just that.
One thing is about it is like the more you can connect, the stronger it gets. So it can become really, really powerful in terms of your movement. Like it can really like jerk you around, which sounds crazy, but probably the wrong terminology there as well.
Yeah,
I saw two pairs of eyes just look at me there
where's
like,
the back
whoa, get this guy out the room. But there's definitely a sense of there's more to it than that when it connects more. You begin to move differently.
I'm not gonna, if I start saying all the stuff we can do, I'm gonna sound completely crazy, but it makes you question like what is possible on this earth.
Yeah,
like it opens your eyes, like because you experience it yourself. You're like, what is going on here? You know, like when you completely disconnect, because like I said, we're not our thoughts, we're not our feelings. You know, we're something else there. It's so normal to be in your head all the time. When you can disconnect from your mind and connect to something deeper and really let go of the mind and let something else just take wave, some crazy shit can go down. And that's the whole skill of the shaking practice, is letting go of the mind. It's not forcing it away, but it's just focusing and feeling. And the shaking, the movement itself is just kind of stirring it up. But it really comes down to the focus and the feel. Focusing on like connecting to the picture for that visual connection and then feeling it in your body. Through the shaking movement, it really builds it up. But it's not, I went into it, my first retreat, I was treating it like a workout. I was like going for it physically, like pushing really hard, not focusing at all. And my back was in bits. I hated it. Like you said, 2 hours, 3 times per day. But I was like going for it. It was like the worst cardio workout ever. I was like crying, not from emotional release, just from like a frustration. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore, right? Because I was an idiot. You know, I was pushing with this like workout approach, but it's not. It's so soft. It's about just letting go. Just let go. It sounds so simple. Just let it fucking go. Let go of all the shit you're attached to. Let go of all the stuff you're trying to focus on, have control over, worry about. Just let it go and just focus and feel. And then it looks after you. But it's so hard to do.
It's hard to put into words how profound the experience is. Like profound being like mind blow, as in like what the hell, just what was that, you know? And I can't put that emphasis enough. One of my, you know, you kind of set incentives as well. One of the things I would have always said was that I would suppress too much emotion. So I would never have much come to the surface. If something happens in my life or there's an external situation going on, I would typically ignore and override. Think logically, not emotionally, pull up the pants, grit the teeth and just whatever. It's not a thing. It's fine. And obviously I realize that and see that there's stuff there, it's just not coming to the surface. One of the incentives that you can set for any of these things is that I was like, I want to be able to feel the emotion that comes up. And this stuff sends you into fits of tears. You know, this is somebody who has struggled to connect to anything, any situation. No matter what was happening, it would be an inability to allow that emotion to come up because it would go instantly ignore and override, which is just through patterns. You know, ignore and override, no matter what it is, it's fine. Whereas this stuff within, like by the last day, was physically able to like let me just well up and cry my eyes out, which is nuts for me because I've never been able to like really allow that release to happen. And part of me really wanted that to happen, but when you go there and it actually does happen, that also adds a sense of like, wow. So not only you experience this physical aspect, but it's enabling you to go deeper into who you are. And like I said, really bringing up some deep emotions that you can't connect to in day-to-day life, that just isn't there accessible. And suddenly it is accessible. And not only is it accessible, you're very much feeling the emotion to the core, where it is sadness, or it is whatever pain is coming up. And that in itself is a very, very powerful experience if you're looking for that.
Why were you looking for it? Because some people might even know, why would I want to cry as a man who's jacked, 25 years old, trying to make money?
Why? I have a deep craving to understand who I am. Why do I think the way I think? Why do I act the way I act? What's nature? What's nurture? Who am I because of my environment? Who am I because of just who I am? These are just questions that I find really interesting as my own person. And I've found this stuff for years. Since I was like, probably the last 5 years, I've been having these questions in my own head, just looking for little answers. I've always been one for doing some introspection, writing out on paper, putting my thoughts down, looking back and trying to connect the dots to my behavior in certain situations from childhood or from relationships, or what connects the dots to why, because I'm just so curious as to why do I act the way I act? Why do I think the way I think? And when I'm like looking for these answers, you can only go through so much in your own brain. You can recite the same information over and over and over again, and you connect the same paths, but it's very hard to open up to brand new thought waves, right? And you can talk to somebody about it, but it doesn't quite do the same thing. And for me, I was looking for some, like, the word I used earlier, profound. I was looking for a profound experience where I could just release everything that I was storing inside that I didn't have access to release, because all I was doing was thinking logically and not emotionally, logically connecting the dots, logically going through everything that I was experiencing without actually sitting there being able to connect to it emotionally. And I had this thought of like, I'm just suppressing everything. I want to feel everything that I'm suppressing. I have like a craving or a desire to just experience everything that I have not allowed myself to express due to different reasons. And that part of me, I can't explain where that comes from, but it is just like an internal craving. It's like when I went to that retreat, I was like, I want to fucking cry my eyes out. I want to feel something here. Like, I'm looking for whatever is down in my stomach to come up to the surface. I want that full experience, whether it's pain, whether it's sadness, grief, I want it all.
Yeah.
And that, I guess, was like the incentive for me to want that and go there. I just didn't want to shake. I didn't want to just have this experience of being at a shake in a tree. I wanted the full, and Miko was the one who introduced me to this, and Miko told me about his experiences, so I knew what was accessible. And I was like, if that's there for him, that means that's there for me. And I went into that retreat with the full intention of getting that. And I can definitely say out loud that came. And it just was like an overwhelm, a positive overwhelm, and then you can leave that and be like, holy fucking crap, I just released the heaviest, most expression-filled experiences of my life as a 25-year-old man. And that leaves an impact where you're like, holy shit, there is power in something like this, because that is not accessible in day-to-day life.
I touch on what you said there, like, why would you want to cry? You know, why would you want to feel these difficult emotions, this grief, sadness, shame, anger, whatever it is? These are all emotions that typical, normal, everyday people avoid, consider it as bad. I don't want to feel this. I'm going to do something else to distract myself from this. What you have to realize is that when you do that, that stuff is getting bottled down. You're suppressing it, but it's not suppressing it and it's just going away. It's getting stored in your body, like Cory mentioned, and it's impacting your life. You're becoming more emotionally reactive. You're becoming more controlled by the emotions that you suppress, and they're negatively affecting every aspect of your life. There's people in my life I know that are super like spiritually connected or just wise, good soul-hearted people, but because they've got so much emotional stuff from their childhood deep within them and they haven't resolved it, they haven't let it out healthily, it's dictating their lives. They have anger issues, they don't think clearly, they act through advice they got from their parents, certain ways of living. It completely imprints on you. And the reason Cory's looking to release that is because once you release it, it's detaching from who you are. You start making your everyday life becomes actually coming from who you are as a real person, not what you've took on from negative people in your life, all your past experiences. And that's why you have to feel the feelings. It's why you can't get the fad diet for the 4-week workout. You have to feel it. You have to go through it. And you have to know that it's positive. The reason you're feeling it is good. It's not a negative thing. Embrace it. If you're fucking anxious, if you're sad, whatever it is, that's a good thing. It's your body's telling you something. If you're in work, go to work. Don't bottle up and quit your job. But when you come home, give yourself time to process your emotions. Let that stuff out. This is coming from two men who are 25 years old, jacked, right? Yeah, we care about the superficial stuff in life. We like to look good. We've got egos. But I'm telling you right now, if you want a return on investment on your life, connect to yourself. Let your emotions flow. Get them out of your system and welcome them, because it is going to affect you. You're going to turn to drink. You're going to turn to these other substances. And the older you get, the harder it's going to be to let that shit go, because it becomes a core part of you. So right now is the time to do that work. Like, I want to be in my 30s with my child, like, just not perfection, but like I want to be so cleansed of all this shit that I've accumulated through my negative teenage experiences, my sexual assault as a child, crazy family life, all that stuff. I want it gone out my system so I don't pass it on to my future child, because I know how easy that generational trauma gets passed down. I see it with my father, I see it with my grandparents, the similarities there. I see the blocks that get imprinted, even like my granddad at 84 years old, certain ways of living that I know isn't him. I just know it's society or whatever's been put onto him, and I want to let all that shit go, because one of my biggest goals is to raise my kids like being the best father ever. And if I don't get real with who I am, how am I going to do that? If I avoid stuff and I bottle my feelings, how the hell am I going to be the best version for them and actually like know what I'm about and not take the easy route? And that's why I'm on the journey, so is he, of just doing the hard work. And I'll say one more thing to bring this tangent to an end. But Ant Middleton, you know who that is?
Yeah.
So people who don't know, Ant Middleton is a guy who's in the special forces, the elite special forces in England. He's wrote multiple books around mindset, challenge, adversity. He's climbed Everest. Super impressive man. He's been fighting in Afghanistan, kicking down doors as like the first man in, breaking down doors, having bullets flying over his head, doing the most extreme stuff that a man in today's society can do in terms of like bravery, conflict, war zones, all that stuff. He said the most brave thing he ever did was getting real with himself, was facing his own identity, asking himself, who the fuck are you, Ant? What kind of man are you trying to become? Getting real with him. He said that that is the most brave thing he ever did. That gives me so much motivation, because I know that what I'm doing is the right path. And I know that by actually going inside, working on yourself, taking the time to face your demons, coming from a guy who's top of his field in warfare, and he's saying that's the most brave thing to do, that fires me the fuck up. Because I'm like, look what I'm doing, you know? I'm not out there shooting people, but like this requires more bravery. That's what coming from him who's lived it. And that's why no one does it, because it's so difficult. That fires me up. Because I don't have to be an MMA fighter. I know I'm going to war with myself. I know that's the biggest reward ever. So that really just
that's
brings it home.
I've heard of him. I've not read of any of his stuff. But
Really good.
he'd be on the same lines as David Goggins, kind of.
In terms of mindset, not in terms of like extreme physical challenges or like that kind of
that challenging yourself.
Yeah,
putting yourself through hard times. You know, as Goggins says, it builds up calluses on your system.
But my thing was like the hard times. Like I pushed myself physically, but it wasn't what I needed. I realized like, that's not doing anything for me. I think Cory's starting to realize that himself more. Like that physical challenge of beating yourself down to like this dog mentality where you've got nothing left. I've been there. I haven't done it to the extreme, but I know that's not actually what I need right now, because that's taking me away from actually getting to know myself and healing my own stuff. That is something I want to develop in the future. But right now, I know that that's not coming from a place of bettering myself. It's almost like torture in a way. It's only a distraction. I think that's a very base level of connecting to yourself. Whereas like the shaking brings stuff up from the depths that you don't even want to deal with, like just pure horror. And that's my ultra marathon. That's my climbing Everest right now for me, because I know that's what's calling me at the moment.
I'll just touch on what Miko said there. If you can hear what he's saying, it's constantly about bettering himself. The theme there is bettering himself. He's already got like some form of physical shape. He's working on like the financial, the mentality's already there. And what's left beneath all that is like the emotion, right? And I can definitely say the same for myself, where I've put so much effort into my physical. My mentality is, in my opinion, pretty decent. I'm definitely no David Goggins or anywhere near that. But in terms of like day-to-day overall mentality, it's relatively decent, right? And then you're looking at like other aspects that kind of click that together. I'm also on the same path where I want to just be the best person that I can be as an individual. How secure, how positive can I be as a person, right? Once you get to a certain physical shape, a certain mental shape, both of them will continue to improve. What's left underneath that is like your emotion, actually. Like, how are you as a person internally? And we all have shit that we accumulate through life. There's nobody who doesn't actually just get a little bit of shit along the way. And if you look at what that shit is, it's the feelings of inadequacy, unworthiness, unlovableness, maybe just a complete lack of confidence, a complete lack of self-belief, all of this stuff that typically we're predisposed to by external situations, a relationship with a parent, a bully in school. Now, not everyone is going to have this, but a lot of the time, when them stuff gets kind of imposed onto you, it is going to stick there, and it's going to stick like shit. And if you were to try and actually do something with your life and become the person that you actually want to become, at least for me, I have a very clear vision like Miko of who I'm trying to become, what I'm trying to embody, how do you embody that? If I'm constantly feeling inadequate, if I'm constantly feeling unlovable or unworthy, and not that they're immediate emotions that are coming up to the surface, but they're there in your subconscious all the time because you have not dealt with anything. And it's there, and it's left an imprint into every relationship you have, every decision you make, any position you go for in a job, opening up a business. All of them things are such heavy emotions to carry that you're not actually conscious of because they've been there for years. And when they're clinging on to you like that, how are you ever going to begin to step into somebody that you could actually become? Like, imagine you could remove all of them negative emotions and just be somebody who has full faith, full belief, full capacity, I'm the best, whatever. Where could you get to in life? And for me, I look at it as like this little trifecta of like mentally, physically, emotionally. Like they're like the 3 dots that you can connect. And if you get to physical shape but you're actually absolutely shamed in who you are and you feel inadequate in every sense of the way, what good is that? Where are you going to get to when you're walking around jacked but you just do not feel like you're worth anything? Okay, that's going to do absolutely nothing for you. What's the point of being like, mentally you're driving yourself into the wall thinking you're hard as hell, but emotionally you're scared of any sort of attachment? You know, there's such deep-rooted stuff here below all that. And if you're genuinely trying to become somebody that you want to become, like me, like Miko, who share very much the same interest, and this is why we click so well, is because if there's a clear vision of the hierarchy where you want to get to, and it's not about becoming the best person in the world or whatever, it's becoming the best version of you. Literally, where can I get to? What can I push myself to be? And the emotion is, like, in my opinion, the most interesting, the most complex, the most appealing, actually. Like, if I was talking any of the 3 areas, this is the one that is the most intriguing because you actually get to see what shit is clinging to you. And if you can remove
And you get
that
to
shit,
feel it. It makes you feel alive.
yeah. And you're like, holy shit. Like, I've been carrying around this feeling of just deep emotions, shame or guilt or inadequacy or stuff that is, once again, that is predisposed to you. That is not who you are. You're not born with a feeling of inadequacy. You're not born with a feeling of unworthiness. You are predisposed to that by your external situation. And if you can remove that, who can you step into and become? Because you're not held back by this bullshit anymore.
I love this shit.
Man, but it's so fucking true.
And if, let's say you become a mega billionaire, there's a lot of them that are super lonely, that hate themselves, that don't feel fulfilled. Why is that? Because there's a part of them that is using that financial endeavor of leveling up their finances to fill that hole. But if they actually just did the work on themselves to fill that hole, they could have still made the billion, been motivated to do that, but actually appreciate it along the way. That's always been my fear. It's like, what if I do become successful, but I can't even appreciate it because I'm not feeling fulfilled within myself? I hear it all the time of people who are super successful. And what really clicked for me was when I bought my first car. It was a long process to get the car. I pushed it out. I thought I wanted to get this car that was going to have a good return on investment for when I sold it to go traveling. I wanted to get something that held its value. But what I really wanted was something that looked good because I was feeling inadequate of buying a shitbox. Even though it wouldn't have been a shitbox, but I was like, I don't want to be seen. I want to be seen driving something cool, right? So this is the thing I wanted the most. It consumed me for months. I finally bought the car. I had the biggest drama ever when I bought the car. It's a story for another day. But when I bought it, after a week or 2 weeks, the satisfaction gone. That was huge for me because that fucking clicked. I was like, there's something here that you wanted so badly and it consumed your life and you thought when you got it, it was going to be the end all be all. And now that you've got it, you don't even really care about it.
Yeah.
That was the huge click. Now, other people won't make this click and they'll think, oh, I just need to get the next shiny object. And they don't have that self-awareness to understand that that's a hamster on a rabbit wheel. When in reality, what clicked for me is like, this is not going to bring me any sort of happiness that I'm looking for. Like this right here, this chasing of materialistic things is not going to bring me that feeling that I'm looking for. And I don't know what the feeling is I'm looking for, but I know it's something. We all feel it. It's the reason why we do anything. You're going to say something?
No, they're great points. In today's society, though, what some people would look at what you're saying is, and you know this was a big talking point for a while ago with the Tate brothers, but this comes across as some people toxic masculinity.
Well, I wouldn't say what we're talking about right now is masculinity at all. I would say
it's going to go down that route of you can't better yourself because if you do, especially that's what society, certain parts of society are trying to ingrain, that it's not good to have strong men, like because it's too, exactly, you know what it is. But and especially the likes of Andrew and Kristen Tate, who got a lot of bad publicity, if you like. I don't know about that, but we're getting into this kind of neck of the woods where especially young guys, you're in your mid-20s, for you to be talking like this is very, very positive, and it shows your mindset and all that. But certain parts of society wouldn't want that it's, going down that route.
Straight away, I'd argue, like, what point of that would they not want to hear? Like somebody who's just trying to better themselves and they don't want to hear that. I would look at that like, that's crazy. Like, to me, that doesn't make sense.
But it's being framed. The reason how you can downplay that, how you can make this look like it's bad, is the toxic masculinity framework, that because we are tapping into our masculine energy of being strong, independent men who want X, Y, and Z, that's considered as toxic because men are like dominant and this should be an equal world. And the problem comes when you introduce the feminine energy into that aspect and you start to highlight what we both read in a book called The Way of the Superior Man, where it's very down to earth, scientifically nearly backed about the polarities of energy in the world. Like there's masculine, feminine, there's the North Pole, the South Pole, like there's opposites, yin and yang. Across the whole of the world, in animal kingdom, everything, there's like male and female. Those two things come together. There's like the offspring. You need both. They're both opposites. Yeah. The energy around that is also it acts out in the humans. Like the masculine energy is more direct, it's more leadership orientated, more gravitates to making decisions. Whereas the feminine is more about like flow and love and expression and just flowing through world. We're very direct. But as soon as you identify that and you kind of say that the man is more the man of the house, or they're more about making the strong decisions and sticking to their ground, and as soon as you say stuff like that, that's when the hate comes in, because we're all equal. I'm not saying we're not equal. I'm saying that people are just best suited for different roles. Why is there anything wrong with that? Why should a woman feel like if she is a mother at home and she focuses on like raising the kids and she's more into her flow and energy and lets the man guide the bigger decisions and she just likes to submit? It's a big thing of female energy is being submissive. A female lion doesn't go hunting down the male lion and trying to smooth talk him. No, the two males fight and then the female submits to that energy. That's in like the Lion Kingdom. That's kind of like how it works in a way. That from what I understand, like feminine energy kind of just wants to like let go. It wants to be led in a positive way. This isn't about being toxic. This isn't about clamping down and controlling. This is about just guiding and letting them operate in this world of just like free flow, which sounds beautiful. But because society is like, no, corporate, women have to like work jobs. It's encouraged. It's fine if you want to do that, but the stigma comes then when you talk about it, or you feel like maybe people want to be more traditional. It's like, no, that's toxic.
But they're even blurring the lines between, now we're entering another topical thing is, the transgender. They're you're talking about male and female there, and now we're into the non-binary, and this opens up a whole new world of confusion for people. And I think this is going to play an even bigger role going forward, unless, like where do you see as, mid-20s, where do you see this going?
Thoughts, Cory?
Because it's a very, very serious topic that people are afraid to talk about.
Just in the toxic,
not on the Real Voices of Boyle.
just in the toxic masculinity bit, I actually reckon that's a much smaller category than what people make it out to be. Like the idea of toxic masculinity, like I would be absolutely baffled if somebody listening to this podcast listened to all of that and thought, what toxic men? That would baffle me. And if it was the case, I would just ignore that situation entirely, because that doesn't make sense to me. But I do think the idea of toxic masculinity is more of a social media presence than it is a day-to-day life.
It's a ideology to hop on in comment sections.
Yeah.
It's like something to like gravitate towards, and someone might start the trend and then everyone else hops on.
That's what I mean, yeah.
But in reality, in social situations, like when you talk about masculinity, like the world needs masculine men. Like this has been brought up so many times, like if someone's getting mugged in an alleyway, you don't want this feminine man who's super insecure and weak in himself and likes to submit and is confused about whether he's a man or a woman coming to save you, like if you're getting robbed. You want this jacked dude who's super on his shit and can fight and is going to save you. Like, you need those men in the world. And what we're talking about is mastering your emotions so that the masculine qualities you develop with your strength, with your ability to fight, whatever that is, are not being controlled by passed down generational trauma from your dad beating you up as a child. If you don't unburden that stuff, that is going to cause you to act out. And when you are a man who's 6 foot tall and jacked and can fight, that's very dangerous. That's dangerous. But that's not a masculine man, in my opinion. A masculine man is stoic. He's stoicism. He's like a mountain, very solid in himself. Has control, grounded, has control of his emotions and is honest and real and doesn't let his emotions control him. That's a masculine man, in my opinion. It's not someone who is strong and toxic and cold and aggressive. That's not masculinity at all. That is super dangerous, but that's a feminine man who's just jacked. That's my opinion.
Greatly though how, as you mentioned, social media does these phrases get thrown around and picked up then by different media and stuff, and then it's pushed, and then all of a sudden, because remember that whole thing with Andrew Tate, he went through a phase of months and everything was toxic, and it was like all he was doing was talking common sense. At the end of the day, it was
with a mixture of some outlandish comments, but a lot of stuff he was saying,
a lot of stuff,
and that was
he said a lot of outrageous stuff, but also a lot of people do. He's very vocal on the internet, and he does have like some crazy views around different things.
And he does,
but like again, taken out of context, pushed with a certain narrative with a headline, demonized. And like when you look at when I look at his character, because I watched a lot of him, and I started to see like just looking at him, like what he's about, the kind of message he's pushing, how he treats people around him. Again, this is only stuff I've seen on the internet, so I can't really give an honest representation, but I like to think I'm a good judge of character. I see enough of people and I see the message behind it.
The message is strong.
Yeah, the message behind it is very strong. And when you look at what that actually goes against, it goes against everything that society is trying to push on the world today of being controlled, not having control of your emotions, breaking up the family household, no strong independence, taking down flags of countries, putting up gay pride flags, like just taking out history in school so people don't know where their history comes from, so they're not a strong independent unit. That is all about destabilization and making people weak. What was Andrew Tate doing? Talking about building up strong men. That's the complete opposite of what big corporations the world wants. So obviously that's a danger to their growth. How do you demonize that? Toxic masculinity, sexual charges. It just makes sense. If you take a step and look back from outside the box, is red flags, you know?
So that always cut up is like longer form content into short, again, TikTok sound bites, and it makes him look like he is saying all these things that they're labeling him. But as he always says, if you look at my long form content and look at the topics we're talking about, it's again total common sense.
Again, you're talking about words.
Yeah,
in my opinion, like a lot of the stuff. Like, look at rap. Come on, look at drill rap. I listen to it all the time, which is one of my biggest things that does not align with who I am as a human. But the lyrics are fucked. You're talking about stabbing people, fucking bitches, fuck women, fuck this. That is hitting the Billboard charts. Shut the fuck up. You're talking rubbish. If you're going to like demonize Andrew Tate for
become a better person.
Some female comments, right, that are taken out of context, which are allowing these vulgar songs with a lot of hate energy behind them to reach number one and get into like children's YouTube boxes. And then you're pushing like Sam Smith bullshit, expose themselves on camera, all this sex stuff, and that's like in children's music. That's crazy. That's again another thing. If you just actually look from outside the box, when that's allowed to pass but other stuff isn't, what's going on here? Like, start thinking, open up your mind, start thinking about this stuff, because it doesn't make any sense.
Well, we live in that kind of a world. A lot of things don't make sense.
Really?
I've been asking this to a couple of guests lately because it's something I should have done, I think, from the start, because I always say in 10, 20 years from now, we're going to look back at the COVID epoch, if you like, and think, that was a crazy time. And I always like to get people's perspective on those couple of years for COVID. So, Cory, maybe can you tell us what was, if you looking back on the days of the lockdown, the early stages of COVID, how did you feel? Like, how did you think the world was going to, like, what was going on in your head?
Straight up, I couldn't really give a shit. I was like, this is just ridiculous. To be fair, in the beginning, no, honestly,
you were 20.
I was 20. I think I was 20, and honestly, I was like, oh, this is nuts, right? And then they're saying all the death tolls. I remember I was doing my like college time at the time, and you're seeing all that stuff pop up, and I remember kind of watching the numbers, actually thinking this is crazy. But Me personally, I was never in like a fear mode. I think I would have been fearful for my grandparents, but just in regards to me and how I was feeling at the time, I was just like, oh, it's a virus. It's going to go about whatever. I spent all that summer drinking cans. I was out in Lockheath swimming in the water. I was not restricted in any sense of the word by this idea of COVID. And
did you think it was going to, like, you were 20, you said, so
Yeah.
like obviously the world was impacted in a way. Everyone was, meant to be locked down.
Yeah.
No nightclubs open up, pubs open. So as a 20-year-old guy,
Mhm.
you're thinking, I need to have a bit of a social life.
Yeah.
Drinking cans in the park might be the ideal social, but like, how did you think, was that ever going to change anytime soon?
Yeah, I don't think it was ever going to stick. Like at the time, I went back up and I was living in Galway then as well. And I was literally just going over to my friend's house and we're all just chilling out together. Like there was, the restrictions were so mainstream, but honestly, as a young person, like I did not really feel that restricted in the grand scheme of things. I was still working in home store more at the time through college. I was doing all my assessments online. Half of them were being cheated because it was online. It was great. like honestly, I had very little complaints at the time. It just got to a point then, obviously after about a year and a half, when we were re-entering lockdowns and they're trying to put out another restrictions. Then it was getting a bit of a fed up attitude where I was like starting to see, I was like, this is maybe getting a bit more of a, they were just, more information was coming out showing that it was maybe not as big a deal as it seemed. And there was some exaggerations going on in the news, and then there was all this like fake data coming out and you're seeing all that stuff, and then it's like, right, this is becoming a bit far stretched. But once again, in terms of how I experienced that time, not a whole lot of effect. College was the same, except it was from my laptop. If anything, it was made easier. My socials were, being completely honest, not that restricted, nor did I make an effort to restrict them either. I think I think there was a lot of fear mongering at that time. I think throughout the whole thing, actually, I was not really buying into it as such.
And did your friend circle have that same sentiment as you?
No, I don't think so. I think the young generation probably did as a whole, where it's like, a little bit less restrictive. If you're living in Galway and you're not around your family and all you're doing is going over to, say, your friends' houses, there's not the guilt, right? If I was going over visiting my grandparents, it would have been very, very different, but I wasn't. And I was nowhere near even going near them. So that wasn't an aspect of it. Or I wasn't living at home with my mum. It was just, I was living in a student house at the time. If one of them got COVID, they'd be all right. There was no major consequences of it. So my experience at that time was not too heavy.
Did you get it?
I got it like twice.
I got it as well.
I got it like twice.
I've had flus and colds way worse. I lost my taste for a couple of days. That was it. And I was, this was so stupid about it. I was happy when I got it because it gave me the cert that I could fly because I had natural immunity.
Yeah, because I was the same. I got to go to my graduation because I got COVID because I wasn't taking the vaccine. I was like, so I got to go loads of things. I got to go abroad.
Yeah.
I got to get my
Man, we were
graduation.
buzzing. We got it and we were like, yes! We went to AVA Music Festival, and when we came back, a bit of a throat thing going on, and Mark, my friend Mark, he's like, oh, I'm going to get tested. He got positive. I said, oh, perfect. I was like,
cough in my face,
I'm
face.
going to go drive over there to Carrick and get tested too. Lo and behold, got it. Amazing. Get my cert. I could fly around, having a great time. And I thought about this, like, this is retarded. It's like, I'm happy that I just got sick because it allows me freedom of travel. And when I went to get tested, it's like I was in a zombie apocalypse in the test center.
Yeah.
Like, everything's just like the shielded windows, as we know, which is just so dystopian and crazy. These little shitty things that you put around your ear, the masks that have like a plastic shield, but it only goes from your chin to like your bottom lip.
Yeah,
it looks so retarded. Like, and it's just for the show. It's like, oh, this person's trying, this person's making an effort, But like going in there and like they're fully hazmated, suited up. They've got like the plastic stuff around their shoes, like this stuff. I thought, man, this is crazy. But again, like allowed me the freedom of travel. But what I really noticed about COVID was the people who normally didn't care, who were like these free spirits, lived life to the edge, did crazy stuff, very disregard for their own health and their bodies when it comes to like taking drugs, alcohol. All of a sudden, they really care about their health and they really care about the safety of others. People who I know that drive drunk and have like 5 passengers in the car. And next thing you know, COVID hits and like we need to stay indoors. Where does that come from?
Yeah,
that comes from a sheep mentality and like being so fear-mongered by everyone around you that you don't want to stand out. Have you not seen the news? One of my friends said to me. I said, man, this is not as serious as you think it is. Like, have you not seen the news? I said, man, I don't watch the news. Like, the news is bullshit. I was like, you're going to believe everything you see in the news. You who is like this crazy bastard. And you're going to listen to this. Like, since when did you give in to control? And then the same people who once the information started coming out a bit more, completely went back to how they used to live. And that showed me just how the lack of masculine strength, again, independence, common sense, and the ability to think outside the box that people have. And that's why everyone just gave in to everything, and everything just got clamped down so quick, because nobody was willing to think outside the box and just look up what actually might be going on here. And if you don't have people putting that idea in your head, you're never going to think outside the box. It's like what I mentioned before. It's like if you don't paint the vision, you're always going to think small. But as soon as you start to look outside the box, you're like, okay, something's going on here.
Yeah, because look, just looking back, I wasn't lucky. I didn't have the certificate. So obviously, me and Florence, we kind of we made the decision that if we can't travel again, so be it. We've done enough of travel.
I did that too.
Yeah,
But I got lucky that I got it.
but like and we were told by a lot of people, oh, that's it, your travel days are over. I said, that's fine. We're happy with that, because you have to make a decision what's right for you. If that goes against the grain, that's fine. But as long as you're true to that, your own belief, if you like, and we were happy with that. But a lot of other people weren't happy with that kind of mentality.
It's the 4-week fad diet again. It's the inability to have faith and think of the bigger long-term vision. It's like, I need to go to the pub this weekend, so I'm going to take something that's untested and that's being pushed with a strong narrative that I really don't know what's going on with it, just because I cannot hold out for possibly my own health in the future, and I'm not willing to stand out. And I'll say the reason that I'm doing it is because I don't want to transmit, or I don't want to pass stuff on. But really, you're just afraid of standing out and not being able to do the things that you want to do. And you've just allowed yourself to be controlled. That's going to piss off a lot of people, but I don't give a shit.
No, it is because, again, we're at the stage where, thankfully, those years are behind us, and people are starting to come out of their shell a little and be a little bit more open to the fact that, maybe we were only following what we were told. But at the end of the day, like, putting the whole of society into a lockdown phase was not the right move. And everyone now kind of realized that you only really lock down a sick population rather than the whole population, because you segment the sick and or those people that were vulnerable, as you said, the elderly or whatever. That's fine. But putting everyone under the same kind of roof was like, no, this doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
I was similar to that.
I'm very healthy. I eat very clean. Why should I have to stay inside?
I was also like, I am not at risk of dying. I'm not taking this. I was like, I'm not going to die from COVID. I'm not taking the vaccine. I was like, the fact that you're trying to tell me that,
if you looked it up,
I'm not going to die.
If you looked it up on Google, the World Health Organization, the stats, there's a 99.9% chance of being okay without treatment. This is a virus that's locked down the whole world. Small businesses have closed. It's ruined people's lives. And the stats on the main page for the whole information around this virus says it's 99.9% you're going to be okay without treatment. That's bonkers.
To be honest, I think that all stems from everyone who made that decision. It completely stems from the background of which they are interpreting medicine. I have someone in my family who's just had a lot of, say, medication for different illnesses and stuff over the years, and the amount of negative effects that her body has gone through simply because of the stuff she's taken. And hearing that information where it's like every new medication causes some other side effect. Everything has a side effect. You take this for this, and next thing you know, you have X. And it's hearing that information and kind of connecting the dots that medicine is only there for a purpose if you have a specific issue. So for me, I was like, I am not going to be the person to die of COVID. Therefore, I do not need the medication in order to protect me, because it's probably going to cause something else. Everything that typically is given causes something else. You take a medicine for acne, and suddenly all your lips are dry and they're peeling off. You take a medicine for, I don't know, something like, let's just say, some skin issue, next thing you know, you have diarrhea. Right? It doesn't make sense. You're taking something that instantly is going to cause something.
And then you take a medication for that next problem.
Yeah, I remember the first acne tablets I went on gave me the worst diarrhea in the world. I was written off.
Thanks for your vulnerability, Cory.
No, I was written off for a week. This is to help me clear acne. That's meant to be long term. And within days, I'm absolutely in bits on a toilet, not understanding what it is. I just thought I was sick, and then it keeps going and going and going. And then it's like, well, what's new to the diet? It's medication. And so when I was coming into that time, a little part of me was just like, I don't I don't need it, therefore I won't take it. Whereas if you don't have that thing, it's like, oh, this is going to keep me safe. Why wouldn't you go for that? I know you come from a background where that's probably pretty prominent in the medicine as a whole. Like taking actual medicine probably isn't the most certified thing in your family. Maybe you come from something similar where medicine has that kind of imprint. If you don't come from that background, it's probably seen as completely normal to take it.
Yeah. I mean, my background, I have a degree in pharmaceutical science. So
right.
I left that industry after I studied for 5 years, got my degree, and went working in a company in Westport, Allegan for 3 months. Got totally disillusioned with it. Just said it's not for me. But at the time, you're trained, if you like, on a certain way of life, and I suppose to pull back from that and to think, is there an alternative? And I say the alternative, like as in alternative medicine, actually, and I say this all the time, was traditional at one stage. We just got
even the word alternative gets, not now, but I used to have this, like, if my dad would talk about alternative or someone, you straight away have this, like, oh yeah, it's whatever, it's push it aside. There's always like this little red flag. And where does that come from? It just comes from society and what's being pushed out there. But in reality, it's like not the facts,
Exactly. It's a slippery slope, but I mean, thankfully those days are gone. I hope we don't see something like that in the future. But
what, lockdowns?
Yeah, but maybe there's going to be a different version. Like, I mean, you see what's going on these days. Like with they're always on about the climate. They're always on about the wars are going on around the place. You don't know what's coming down the line either. Like that's going to be a legitimate scare for people. But
it's true.
It's hard to know. Was that almost like a test period where they're trying to see how much they could push? Because as I said, locking the whole population doesn't make sense.
I'm totally down for the conspiracy theories on that. 100%. I am backing every conspiracy theory that pops up around COVID.
Everything is a conspiracy theory until it comes true. And then it's just new news. Like, everything that gets pushed at the beginning is just labeled as conspiracy. But when it actually comes out to the light, people don't even want to accept it because they know that they've been had. And it's easier. This is what really pissed me off when this fact landed with me. It was like, even if, let's say, everything around COVID was complete conspiracy, imagine like the documents came out, the facts came out, and it was all over the world that this was like a hoax or whatever it was. Everyone who followed along with it and believed it, what I've learned about identity, how we operate as humans, it is too crippling for the identity to admit that they were wrong or they were had, so they will find a way to pass it off like it isn't even true, because it's much easier to like not accept the truth even though it's right in your face, because deep down that you've been had, and that's too painful to deal with. So the protective mechanisms in your body are like, no, don't want to hear about it. Oh yeah, but sure, this happened and that could have happened. No, sure, are you sure? No, we're telling you right now, this is what happened. No, I don't. That's what really pissed me off. Is like, it doesn't matter, because if the media will find a way to skew it, or people just won't believe it, and that way there's never going to be that moment of, like, in anything, I don't think, where the truth just truly comes out. It's just too saturated with different channels and people's inability to accept it. So,
speaking of conspiracy theories, since you brought it up,
I thought we were already down that rabbit hole.
Here we go. No. What's your favorite?
You opened that can of worms now.
I'm gonna need a second to think like it. All right, my conspiracy theory, there's no concrete proof of this, but it's the whole agenda behind, I think this is pretty well known, but it's like pharmaceuticals and like the fishing industry and the meat industry, and how they're all like superpowers controlling everything and disregarding, I would say, the media puts it forward, this idea of it's the straws, when in reality it's all the multi-trillion companies that are kind of governing everything. I don't know if you've watched that Seaspiracy documentary. Yeah, basically what I'm talking about there. They have like that mega stream.
I watched another one. There's another one, something conspiracy.
Cowspiracy.
The methane, the farts.
Yeah,
I've seen that one.
Yeah, I watched that.
Is crazy.
I watched them too, but if I was to come up with the two of them, the most ones that I could probably back in terms of like, these are my favorite in the sense of like, I genuinely know with a conviction that they're true, it would be the idea of Seaspiracy and Cowspiracy, where there's just multi-trillion companies that are just controlling absolutely everything. Like, they show that Coca-Cola, Pepsi, like 60 different brands are all owned by one company, and that same company is the one that's like backing the companies that are no longer allowed. There's like a big chain And then all the reporters are going missing. There's all this like random incidences on the boats. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff in that one.
That's
that I
not a
would push forward
conspiracy,
with.
in my opinion. Like,
That's
if
proof.
anybody thinks that the president of the United States is the one who has all the power, like, get the fuck out of here. Like, you know, you're a puppet. Like, I know this is why Donald Trump is getting absolutely shit on, because he's someone who has his own money behind him. When you have your own money to fund your own campaign, you're not bought. It's like Andrew Tate, nearly a billionaire. You can't buy him with money. He's got all the money he needs. Super powerful, independent, not attached to any commercial industries. And Trump is the same. Why does he get so much hate? He's demonized.
Do you not think he could be part of the bigger picture, that he's been not a shill, but that he's part of, like, at the end of the day, it's a two-party machine in the States, Republican.
The whole system's flawed.
And it doesn't matter, as I call it, it's the same circus, different clowns.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. Trump can't be bought, but he is in the position where if he gets in a week's time or whatever, he's going to be going back into the position he was. He, in my view, is the best out of that point.
Yeah, he's the best of the worst.
I watched this podcast
With Joe
with Joe Rogan.
see
Yeah, that completely changed my opinion of him, because I only ever interpreted Donald Trump as what I read, what he said, or these clips. So I never had much of an opinion. Yeah, I had no opinion of him, and I just read it. And then when I listened to him speak and talk about the facts and talk about the impacts he'd made, it kind of made me go like, oh, you know, like in terms of like a candidate, I can kind of back what he was saying in that podcast. Maybe not everything else he's saying, but he's talking about some really powerful topics where you're like, why wouldn't you want that for your country?
Yeah, the thing is, he inflicts the change, like whatever his message is, whatever he's going to put forward in motion. But there's two things that stood out to me. I think it was Dr. Phil was on Joe Rogan, or somebody was on Joe Rogan, and they highlighted how many actual people are in the American government system. And there's a couple of million in American government in different departments. So necessarily not all government is evil, but there's a lot of evil heads within the government. And if we look back to what Cory said about like the trillionaire companies have all, wherever the money is behind it, that's where the power is. Because that is an energy source. We talked about energy earlier on. Money is an energy source. If I have a million whatever right now, I can inflict change and I have power. Simple. I can get people to do things that they would not have otherwise done if I didn't have the money. So that is where the power is. So they're the top dogs. But when you look below that, like within the government, it's like if Trump is the front value man and he wants to put forward this really positive change, it has to go through so many fucking departments, and there's money being shifted here. There's so much moving parts that stuff just gets diluted. One person decides to not file this paperwork. There's just so much stuff that can stop something if it wants to happen. So like you said, they're like the front face man, the puppet, or the best out of a bad bunch. But like Russell Brand said it very clearly many years in different podcast episodes, like the overall system is just flawed. The way it works, the way that we just sit around like politicians arguing in like Congress, and like no one's actually Chris Williamson says something brilliantly about how like they're just built to look like it's more of an act. It's like they're just, yeah, it's actors. Yeah, it is like an acting game of how much bullshit can we say, how much things can we say that looks like we're inflicting change, but really we're doing nothing. It's just like this, it's like this game of how well media trained we are, but they're all just there for a salary and they're getting good money, you know?
That always struck me with the likes of Trump, for example. Like, and it's always been said, he has all the money, he has everything. He didn't have to go for the presidency back in 2016 when he got it. He sure as hell doesn't need to do it now. So why is he doing it?
Yeah.
It comes down, people will say, yeah, because he's an egomaniac and wants legacy and the power, which I get it. When you have all the money and you don't need money, you have to have this sense of power. And I get someone in his position, that's what they might want. So when people say, oh, why does he have to do it? I think there's a part of me, I think genuinely part of me, he wants to, do good by the American people. But then there is the megalomaniac side of him as well that likes power and control. So
I would say so. He says like two statements in the podcast that definitely say that as well. He says like twice on how the president is the most powerful person in the country, where he rents that statement. So probably.
Yeah. I think there's a part of him that wants that power and control.
Comes back to, again, people, just work on yourself. It's so simple. I like, it's so fucking simple. Like, if every person on this planet just wanted to work on themselves, to do what me and Corey and you were doing, just to level yourself up to be the highest version of yourself, not in terms of wealth, but in terms of characteristics, positivity, empathy, honor, you know, just good morals. If everyone did that, there's no issues in the world. There just isn't. It's a completely unrealistic dream, I know. But this is the facts. It's like, if everyone just forgot about everybody else, focus on themselves, it's done.
What did you say?
It's done,
What
like,
did you say the other day? It came from not being able to sit in the room.
the quote.
Yeah. That quote.
Yeah, so
That was interesting.
there's a brilliant quote, and it goes like this. The root of all man's problems is because a man cannot sit still in a room by himself. I'm going to say it again. The root of all man's problems is because he cannot sit still in a room by himself. Let that sink in and think about that. If you could just sit with whatever the fuck was going on in your head in that moment and just sat with it, you don't have the drive to go out and get a prostitute because you're horny and ruin your marriage. You don't have the need to go gambling and blow all your funds and create a gambling addiction. You're able to sit within your own skin and not binge out, eat a lot of shit food, get fat. It all comes down to your ability to just exist. You can just exist with being alive. All the issues just disappear. Greed, what? You don't need greed. You're chilling. You're fine within yourself. You know, you're comfortable within your own skin. Why do I need to bomb Israel? You know, I'm good. You know, I don't need to go and kill all these people. For what? It's retarded. It makes no sense. It just comes down to this fundamental lack that we're disconnected, so disconnected as a humanity from our souls. And that's the kind of journey that me and Corey are embarking on and trying to promote here. I sound like an absolute religious nut trying to spread the message, but deep down, it's so simple. It really is.
I remember I was saying to you as well the other day, Corey, when we were talking about how TikTok is, conditioning the younger generations to, like, 3 seconds, 5 seconds, get that attention span. So they actually can't do what Miko was saying in that quote. They can't sit for a minute, for mine, an hour is an eternity. So we're getting to that stage where social media is getting is reprogramming the younger generation's brain so that they don't have that ability to do what you said in that quote, Miko. It's so true, like.
And that's what all the social media masculinity YouTubers are promoting, is like delayed gratification, working towards something in the future that doesn't give you the pleasure now, meditation, self-mastery, all the things that cause you to be more connected to yourself. They're also the ones that get demonized the most, shut down on. Like Hamza is one of them. It's really just like all this like bans on YouTube. Companies won't work with him because he promotes like masculinity and like bettering yourself. Why? It makes no sense.
The social media thing is crazy though. I think my usage of like social media apps has decreased like crazy in the last 6 months. When I kind of stepped into this new lifestyle, before in Ireland I was so busy I wasn't really on my phone too much. But since I'm having all this free time, working from your laptop in your own room every day, not really having any restrictions or anyone looking at you to feel obligated to not go on your phone, I noticed I was scrolling way more. And I noticed a direct correlation between how much I was scrolling and how I actually felt. Like I 100% feel worse when I spend more time on my phone. And when I do go on my phone, it's typically because I'm feeling worse. Like when my mood is hitting low, or if I'm feeling any way fed up, or if I'm any way demotivated, the automatic reaction is to scroll and go into this mindless stint of just going through the motions on the phone. And, when you're 13, 14, 15, as a kid, you don't have a clue about that. I'm 25 and I just came to that realization purely because I was just in my room so much with no other company because I was on the laptop doing whatever, typically resorting back to the phone more frequently than I would have before. That's the only way I've come to that realization. But I can see the link is clear as day. And now every time I scroll, I'm almost able to catch why I'm doing it. And it's just because I got fed up with something on the laptop. I just became frustrated with something I'm trying to create, or the content pissed me off that I was trying to make. So instead of now scrolling, there's always the connection between my scroll and my emotion.
What I talk about, what's the feeling you're avoiding feeling? If you don't catch that, you don't even have that understanding that I'm actually avoiding feeling something right now, you just give in to every single impulse. I get caught by it all the time. It's hard. I'm not saying this is easy. I'm not saying that you're going to get to this elevated state, but I'm saying it's way worth embarking on this journey to try and level yourself up and detach from all these feelings than just giving into it, because it'll suck you in. And the world's getting more and more advanced with like your attention right now is like the most valuable asset for advertisement, for everything. It's your focus, and things are getting a lot more advanced for robbing that focus. So if you don't level up your mental strength, connect to what's actually important in your life, connect to yourself, you're gonna get sucked away. Some sex robots are gonna come and fucking take you away or something. I don't know.
You grew up with social media.
Yeah,
I didn't.
Facebook at the start of Facebook, like in teenage, and then it moved to Instagram,
Yeah.
like when I was 16, 17.
Just missed it actually. Like just missed the growth of it being in your childhood. Like I was 12 when I got my first Nokia block. I was maybe 14 when I discovered. No, I was 10 when I got Nokia block. I was 14 when I got some form of smart. Or first year. What age are you in first year? 12, 13.
13.
So I was that age when I got the screen. If you're looking at kids now, they're the ones who are screwed. Actually, the kids 10 years ago who were 1 and are now 10 now, they're the ones who are fucked.
I'll call out my cousin, man. Like, he's super intelligent. He's like 12. He's going into secondary school. This is his first year. Super intelligent, like full of life. Look at a kid and his eyes are just like glowing. Like he's just got that really like intelligent, like energetic child, you know. But Fortnite, like consuming him, you know. And then in between Fortnite rounds, he'll go on his phone, start scrolling YouTube shorts. And when he's sitting playing Fortnite, he's hunched like this, you know, at the computer. And like, it's so difficult for me because I used to be an absolute Fortnite nerd. Like I played it for a year straight, like a freak, you know, consumed my life. I know how addictive these things are because they tap into every single reward system that's in the human brain. A lot of them do, like leveling up through ranks. If you're losing a match and you come back, it's a sense of like a comeback or reward, victory when you were down and out. Progression, like customization of characters, all these things tap into all the things that we should be doing in normal life. But what happens when you fulfill them in a game? You don't have that motivation to do it in real life because my needs are being met. I'm getting it all. Why would I want to become rich and successful and level up my character points to get women or whatever it is when I've got porn and games giving me all the stuff I need? And the problem is, like, he's 12. Everyone in his school is doing it. You take him away from it because he's in that environment. You're just like creating resentment. He's going to create the craving more and more to get on it. So it's super hard. Like, I don't know I have a lot of fears of what I'm going to do with my children. For me, it's all about like getting into a place where I don't have to put my kid in that environment, where I'm around more like-minded people who are detached from that technology. But it's super difficult.
I think that's the next generation. So like if you come to, I'm 25 now, let's say technology really came in when I was about 13 or 14. That's when Snapchat, Instagram and all that stuff came in. My cousins below me who are maybe 18, 16. So you're talking 5 years plus in the difference. They're the ones who had to suffer with social media because it wasn't seen how bad it was at that time because it was so new. So you're talking as like the kids who are now 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, they have got the brunt of this social media thing. But our generation, me, you, Carlo, all of us that would now look at our kid and be like, there's no chance my child is going to be like that on the phone. There's no chance he's going to be warped into the way they gaming and
but
TikTok.
It's hard because when you put them into school, then they're surrounded by their friends who are all doing it.
But I'd argue,
and their parents allow them to do it.
Absolutely. But what my argument would be is that the majority of people our age, not in every place, but I think a much higher percentage of people our age now are more aware to how bad social media is and how terrible it like consumes you and what it does to kids' brains. Whereas 10 years ago, the parents weren't aware of that because they couldn't foresee what was coming because it was new. You know, seeing your child on the phone, at the time it wasn't aware. Whereas me now, when I have a child, I know exactly what that does to your brains. There's all the studies coming out about how it affects the vision because they're so close in. You were talking about attention span. Of course, my child's going to have some form of something at some point, you know, some form of stimulation because games. I had it growing up on the Xbox, whatever. It's not a bad thing, except when it's abused, when it's given as their sole purpose of entertainment. So
for me, for my generation, it was the TV in the corner.
There's always something.
That was in the room.
Yeah.
But when you left the room, the TV. So
my granny is hooked on the news. And TV show, like she'll wake up, she'll put on the news. She'll go to bed, the news is on. Not just the news, but TV programs. Like she has her TV magazine, all the list of programs, and she highlights them. And I looked at it, I was like, that's fucking old person TikTok. That's what it is, man. It's the exact same thing. I love looking at like the chemical signals in our brain and identifying that, no, we're not different, right? We all are driven by the same things. She's just getting dopamine on tap. And she cannot have the TV off to sit with herself. She cannot sit comfortably in a room by herself. So she's driven to sugar and, sorry to shit all over you, Granny, I'm sorry. Sugar and the TV. Yeah, it's the same thing. It's just the older generation, and it's just been now put into a system that you can pull out your pocket whenever you're feeling low and just flick your life
Question
away.
is, what's coming next?
What is coming next?
What's going to get a
something?
hold of us? It's going to be crazy.
Did you tell me about the rat study? No? This is one I heard about cocaine and rats. There was a rat by himself, right? Poor little rat in his little box. No rat bitches, no nothing, right? It's just rat by himself. He's got no purpose. They give the rat cocaine. The rat starts taking the cocaine. Then they give the rat like food or cocaine. It picks the cocaine over the food, right? They then introduced a female and like a hamster wheel, something for the rat to do, and a female company or a friend. And they give the same rat the cocaine or the food, and it goes back to eating the food. Once there was purpose and like normal connection of what it should be doing in its life, it gravitated more towards the normal stuff. So if you're a man, a woman, whoever, whatever it is, and you don't have that sense of purpose, fulfillment in your life, connection with yourself, your job, family, something that makes you just feel good to be alive, you're going to be much more easily pulled to these soul-sucking things. Like for me, it's been porn like my whole life. Whenever I hit a real low depressive mood, it's like that demon energy just pulls me in. It's like I need to just feel better about myself. And again, the studies show it goes back to a lack of purpose. And we're not too different from rats, unfortunately, in terms of like how our chemicals work. If we have that sense of purpose and fulfillment and we feel connected to our lives, why would I want to go and beat my dick looking at some pixels on a screen of people having sex? It's so below your vibration, your energy of what is good in your life. Why would I want to do that? But as soon as you drop and you're like, oh, I hate my life and this is so difficult, that just sucks you in like that. And that's why it's so important to stay as much as you can in that higher vibration and focus in your life and do things that stimulate and challenge you. And that's what I'm all about right now.
So then what is coming next? Like
It's terrifying.
We were talking about the other day, we were talking about AI from a business perspective, and that I see it even in our business. If we don't embrace AI, we're going to be left behind.
Yeah,
it's just the way
it's competitive. Yeah.
Now, there are, of course, we see the likes of ChatGPT. We all use it.
Yeah, frequently.
Right. But it's also, I think, I can even see it myself. You can see the conditioning that it happens very quickly on, you rely on it because it solves things pretty quickly and makes mundane tasks, especially from a business perspective, non-existent. So remember I said to you there the other day that the quote is that AI won't replace your job, but someone that uses it will. That's a fact. So I think we live in a world where we can't get rid of the internet, nor I don't think any of us would want to, or else we wouldn't even be sitting here now in Gdańsk having this conversation. But where do you think, even with the advancement of AI, where does it lead to in the next 5 to 10 years, which is pretty short term, which is actually is pretty long in technology terms.
Yeah.
But it's, it's only 5 or 10 years away from that.
I actually think it's going to be a human connection. I really think it's going to take place in that sense. It's like in all the tasks. Jesus, that was difficult to say.
All right.
The tasks.
It's a safe play.
Are being the tasks are getting completed. To be able to do business tasks, to be able to get your quick Google search, AI to do typical roles in factories. All of them aspects are being complete. And it's like they can only work on what's coming next. And the next area for me, I think, is like that social connection, that more human interaction with something probably more physical. Like they're saying the robots that are coming out, or they're doing the chips, and they're on about actually putting into your brain that, what's it called? Neuralink.
Okay.
Neuralink, things like that. Like that stuff is crazy. So I think it's going to go crazy advanced in the next couple of years. But my theory would be more human, like an AI physical reaction.
Look at movies, all the movies that have been put forward, they stem from monitoring the natural evolution of society and technology. It's like, okay, Cory had his Nokia block. Now he's got an iPhone that has 4 cameras and can FaceTime Japan within seconds, Okay, where does that lead in 10 years? And you just look at that trajectory and just think about the most crazy thing you can think of. That's probably going to happen. It just is. We just see if we keep going at this rate. So where does that lead? Like the stuff you see in movies where someone's got something in their head and they can just like pull up the screen and make something move over here. That's probably going to happen. It sounds far-fetched, but that's probably going to happen. Now, where does that becomes very dangerous, and this is where it gets a bit dicey. Like people with that technology in like the wrong hands, or it just becomes very scary and like what could be possible for like control. And Cory talked about like human connection. They've already got like AI apps that's like your AI companion, and it's designed to be your friend. And like, oh, people just want to have a conversation, they put out their AI friend, but it's not to help you out with your maths problem. It's literally to be there as a support structure, because it can give you valuable advice, and like it's advertised as this loving character. That's fucking a bit scary, because it's practical. Sure, if someone's super depressed and they find that easy to go to, but what it does is it just removes the need to want to go to human connection, and eventually you become so reliant on technology that your head's fried. You were going to say something there.
Just one of the advances as well. I don't know if any of you seen that they're now able to genetically mutate children, so you can predispose your child to certain genetic strong traits, and that's starting to come into fruition. Like that's in the process of just being allowed in countries once they finalize the certain guidelines that just need to be ruled out. What can you use it for? What can't you? Yeah.
If I wanted my child to look like Chris Bumstead coming out of the womb, he can come out with lat spread and double bicep.
Yeah, you're gonna genetically create.
Sign me up. That's a good invention. I'll take that.
So
that's out there a while, I think.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, it's scary, but like I think, as you were saying, Nico, we're getting conditioned to a certain way when it comes to AI. In 5-10 years' time, we look back probably and think, ChatGPT, what was that?
It's like
it's like dial-up internet.
Yeah.
You know, and so like, where does it end? And I know
it's so normal though right now, isn't it? Like ChatGPT, it's like I replaced Google. It's on my home screen. It's Google now.
I don't use
search.
Google at all.
No,
I haven't used this.
Why would you? Why would you go and look through some websites with articles when you can just get the direct answer like that?
Yeah. So I mean, that's where, as I said, from a business perspective, if you don't embrace it, and we were talking about how AI and you can use it with automations in your business, and even in your business, you're going to be having to utilize that to an even bigger level going forward, I think, because if your competitors are
for the mundane tasks, but like specifically in our job with coaching, one person who signed up with me and they said how they were with a different coach, and I think I know which coach, what system the coach was using. It's a lot of automated stuff. So like you basically plan the whole client journey from the start with automated messages, automated videos, so that you can just onboard the client and then you're just hands off. Like you might do like a weekly check-in with them, but when it comes to like their education support, everything's just automated. And people know it's automated, and like it removes that connection. And one of the biggest things he said was he didn't like it because it just felt like automated and he didn't actually have connection from the coach. So there is going to be that massive need and desire for that human connection. People want it. It's why there's certain jobs that just won't get removed, because people know when something's real and they can connect to it on an energetic level. But for the mundane tasks like automating email sequences, whatever that is behind the scenes that we can do, 100% I'm getting on that. But I would never replace the human connection with a person, because that's what I'm in this job for. You know, the fact that it's online already pisses me off. But I want the freedom more than I want to work in a gym getting paid an hourly rate. So this is a better model, but definitely wouldn't remove the human connection. I love the client
call. It's probably one of the few industries that have that in terms of scaling. You know, there's not that many industries that don't have like the power of AI to come in, like any software job, any say something like yourself, digital marketing as well. Like as you said, if you're not using it, you're going to be replaced by somebody who is using it. There's a lot of industries that still have that, whether it's manual labor, all of them. You know, I think fitness is actually probably one of the few that just doesn't quite have the same risk of it being fully replaced, if that makes sense. But
it doesn't, man. Like,
see them robots that Elon Musk is roping out.
No, I see.
Look it up. A proper lifestyle. What's the name of them? They're called. But basically, he reckons with scale, he can get the price down to like at the start 20-30K for this human robot,
just in your house,
human-looking robot that's just there doing tasks,
picking the bag up off the floor,
so
give you.
Like I had a conversation with.
That's gonna be crazy. That's just
because I was thinking, you know what, Barbie, you're safe, and he said, actually no, because he goes, what's going to happen is the day is going to come where a person's going to come in, sit down in their chair, there's going to be a screen, an iPad in front of them. I want this. Nextly, behind them comes the robotic arms, and you know does everything because you can 3D.
And then it malfunctions and it slits your throat. It's like, you know what? I'm having a bad day today, Jimmy. Fuck your skin fade. You're out.
All it takes is one hacker to take over the system. You know what else?
But people love the barber for the chat.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. the reality is like we're still humans. The stuff has been implemented to make our lives better. A lot of stuff you don't want it to replace. There's a lot of stuff it will replace, like the mundane tasks. I had this conversation with my ex-girlfriend, and I was very advocating against like having a robot doing the dishes. Because my argument was that it's important that we do these mundane tasks because it keeps us humble, something like that. I take that back completely now because I'm like, I want to buy back so much time as much as possible. I've done enough dishes. I've worked dishwashing jobs. I don't like doing them. All right. If I can have a personal chef and someone to wash my dishes, I'm going to do it. If it's a robot that does it, sure, whatever. I get it now. Like why she was saying that could be great for some people to get back time for their families. Yeah. But my argument at the time was just like, no, like the way my mum is with AI is like, no, we can't. No, it's like fighting. It's like trying to stay in the past. It's going to happen. You're going to cause yourself more stress fighting it. You know, there's a time and place to allow stuff into your life. But I've realized that, like you said, you're going to get left behind. I was against like smartwatches. Now I've got one. I love it. You know, there's certain things I try
and... back your time is right though.
Yeah.
When it comes to interpersonal stuff, that's different. You want that human element as much as possible. Get it, but buying back your time.
It's the biggest asset.
I would love.
Exactly, it's your biggest asset.
I would absolutely love to be in a position where like your business is flowing. You're in a position where you're able to like pay 20k for a robot that'll just walk around your house and constantly clean it.
I wouldn't want a robot though. It actually was once someone that I love, but someone that's like
someone I love like my child.
Yeah. Someone like my newborn infant who's 5 months old but has the ability to wash dishes. I've genetically modified them so they have the ability to wash dishes. That's what I want. What I really want is just like someone that their job is to wash dishes and clean the house, like a maid, but like you got a great connection with them, not a robot. Yeah. But someone who like gets fulfilled by doing the dishes and like needs the money. But
when you look at it in alternative, sure. I'll take it.
But like, I had a stigma. Mum had it too. A lot of people do. Is like, oh yeah, who are we to get someone to clean our house? You know, what are we, like snobby? You know, that's a poor person mindset. You know, you're afraid of moving into this like realm of how you live, getting someone else to do your jobs you don't want to do because of fear of this identity other people think of you. Who does she think she is? But in reality, that person needs a job. You need more time to do more important stuff. What's wrong with that? And that's the kind of like ideologies that can get pushed on you from your parents, like the mindset around money, which you have to be very careful of. I've realized myself, just moving forward in life.
There's a guy called Dr. John DeMartini. Are any of you familiar with him?
That name sounds familiar.
So he talks a lot on like entrepreneurial skills, but also massively self-development. But one of the key things he talks about, he's all about like reaching your potential, you know, like touching your max capacity. He's a real old dude in his mid to late 70s now, but he's got loads of great work. And one of the things he says that anything that's not high in your values, you give to someone else. Like if it's your driving, if you hate driving, and let's say in his position, he's an entrepreneur, right? So he's always working from his laptop or doing whatever. He's on calls. He's always got something going on. So he doesn't cook, he doesn't clean, he doesn't drive. The three things that take up his time that is most valuable to him, he offsets to somebody else. So his time is spent doing research, writing, teaching. You know, and he talks about anything that's most valuable to him, he puts his time into. Anything that's not valuable to him, he will offload it to somebody else to take over. So like that thing of cleaning, cooking, driving, any of them tasks that do take away from what you're trying to do business-wise or work-wise, it makes perfect sense.
That's a crazy statement if you're the average person like I used to be. I'm not saying I'm not average, but my mindset is definitely not average now from what I've researched in. But that is a crazy concept that I would offload these tasks to someone else to get more time back for myself. Why would I do that when I can save money by doing the tasks? Why would I pay someone to do the dishes? I can do them myself. You know, that is the mindset. And that's the flip from someone who's going to be successful and make the most of their time to level up their life, and someone who's going to stay stuck because you cannot make more time. You simply can't. There's only a certain amount of hours in the day. The way you level up is by replacing that, buying back that time. I'm totally on board what you just said there. Like, imagine if I spent so much time making food, washing the dishes, doing all this stuff. If I got all that time back and I multiplied it across my lifetime, that's a lot of hours. Those hours add up. Your life is limited. You know, people don't value their time. It's just thrown away, given to people they don't like, doing stuff they don't want to do, all this stupid stuff, and money is valued more. But that is the flawed mindset that I've had for years, and I recommend everyone trying to move away from, because it will change your life completely.
Well, Carlo, if you look at you and your business, right, you've done it on a micro level instead of like a macro level. You know, you've delegated all the tasks that you were currently doing beforehand. So the stuff that you were doing, say, 10 years ago in the very beginning, that was very, very time consuming. You were being pulled in a million directions. Suddenly you're delegating it to somebody else. And then you delegate the next bit to somebody else. And then you delegate the next bit to somebody else. Now all of your time is spent doing what's most valuable to you. Right, so you can do it.
It's a formula for growth.
Yeah, so it's the micro level there, and then the macro level is when you're mega successful, and suddenly you're like, I'll get a cleaner, I'll get a driver,
It's
I'll
not
get
easy though, like as I was saying to you, for us back in those days when we had to hire a project manager, like it felt like, we were losing control. But actually that was us being chained to certain systems and processes that we took, as I said, like it took a couple of years to get into that mindset. And once you let go and you see that things can operate without you, it's very free. And as you said, it gives you so much time that you don't have. Because otherwise then you can't grow to a certain stage or get to the next level, if you like, if you're doing everything.
You have to experience it, I think. Like I just recently hired an editor. Editing takes so much time. Once I seen that I had 30 videos edited there and I didn't have to edit any one of them, something inside me was like, holy shit, this is amazing, So I encourage anybody out there, right, who's listening to this, find something in your life that you hate doing, no matter what it is. And if it's something that you can outsource to somebody else, do it and see how it makes you feel. Once you know that that task has been completed, but you didn't have to do it, and you now have that time for something else, I guarantee you that'll flip a switch in you. But it's only once you've experienced it yourself. It's like when you go to a hotel and you come home on your second day and you come back and all the sheets have been ironed and everything's laid out for room service. Like, oh, this is great. I don't have to clean my room. It's that feeling of like stuff just gets done and you've equated a form of energy, which is your money, but you've saved another form of energy, which is your time and your mindset and your mental energy. And you use that stuff then for other things that matter to you. And that is like, it's such a unique way of living. But once it clicks, it's like, okay, this is the box I can now operate in. This opens up so many doors. It's amazing. Like
it's very growth oriented.
Super growth oriented.
Very growth oriented. Like that you're going to get to a certain point that's going to require you to have to delegate all of these tasks because you just have the vision of getting to that point where you're no longer just living the same life that you're living right now, which in his position isn't required to. I don't need somebody to right now to do my washing for me, to be honest. But I want to get to a point where I can.
Falls down to like growth, like you said, like what's the growth versus fixed mindset? So like a fixed mindset is just believing that who you are is who you are, what you currently, the world you operate in is how it is. Whereas like a growth mindset, from my understanding, is like the opportunity, the belief that everything has the ability to be grown into. You can learn certain traits, develop certain skills that level you up to be this certain person, and that you have the ability to change a lot of aspects of your life. But majority of people don't have that growth mindset. So you're always working in a limited box. Like you get to a certain position in your job, there's no natural ladder from there. You're like, okay, this is who I am, this is my position, this is me. That's it. Your mindset is not growth orientated in your career. Why would it be growth orientated in your day-to-day life? It's just going through the motions. That to me, in my opinion, sounds like fucking hell. That is why I do everything on a day-to-day basis, is to avoid that lifestyle, because that for some reason just like makes me feel sick. I can't do that. And once you have that growth mindset, you look at it in everything. You look at it in the tasks you can offload. You look at it in your emotional, your relationships with people. Doing this podcast right now, I'm conscious of how I'm speaking. How can I improve how I speak? The average person is not walking down the street thinking, how can I improve how I speak? But when you have that growth mindset, the world is your oyster. You can become anybody you want. Once you can dream it and you put the actions into place and you actually make an effort towards it, the probabilities of you not getting there, if you apply your effort and energy to it, are quite slim, in my opinion.
I also argue, well, I think, typically speaking, some of that is like ingrained into who you are. You have a little bit of that, but you don't. But a lot of that comes back into the emotional stuff. What are you predisposed to? Your predispositions are going to massively dictate that mindset. You have been just completely shot on since you were a child by the people around you. You've just been completely run down. That person's going to have an incredibly hard time seeing anything for their future and for themselves. Or if they've had to just experience some stuff and they've just had to completely shut down as an individual, that person's going to have to read. Not everybody.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Some people have a little bit more than others, but typically speaking, I think
there's the contrast to that though, because there was another study done, or a questionnaire form filled out, that a lot of hyper successful people all suffered from a crippling lack of insufficiency.
Mm.
They had this drive in them because they didn't feel good enough within themselves, that they had to accomplish all these things. And that was their driving factor to achieve all these big things. So it works in both ways. It's like you'll get so much shit put on you that you just crumble up inside, or all that shit is like motivating you and acts as like fertilizer and soil to grow into this new person. And that's what you were curious about, like, what is it about me that makes me me? Like, what is it? What certain experiences, predisposition, genetics that makes someone have a really hard life and use it as fuel to grow, and someone have a really hard life where they just get consumed by it and they turn to drugs and disappear? Like, what is it there?
It's that fascinating topic of nature versus nurture, right? Your physiological makeup, as in who you are as a person chemically, which dictates massively into that decision versus what you're predisposed to. Like, it's so interesting because you can have two siblings who grow up in the same house who turn out two different people, and it's not because necessarily the external situation, it's the physiological makeup that
What
makes.
about like your soul's path as well?
That as well, yeah, that's another aspect where it's like, you know, the internal part.
And this is again what I love about all this stuff is just so humbling. It's like, I know shit. Do you want anyway? Fuck you if you have like strong opinions and you believe something. Like, I believe my own personal experiences, but if you, well,
It's a direct shout out to you.
no, yeah. No, listen.
You
listen. If you think you're 100% certain about something, you don't know shit. I'm sorry, you don't.
true.
None of us know fuck all. We know what's been passed down to us, what we've read in books.
Yeah.
We're complicated as hell, people. Like, there's a lot going on there, and it's so humbling to realize that you don't know shit, and it's okay if you don't know shit. Me personally, I respect you more if you can admit when you're wrong.
Literally nothing. Even going back to that ancient civilizations, we're all
Here we go.
having that topic on the Graham Hancock thing. Like, that in itself is just mind blowing, because this is only coming out recently about all this, like, thousands of extra added an extra 2 decades onto the current timeline, and we're finding out the civilizations all the way back then. We know nothing. We know absolutely nothing.
What do you say? There's like, how did they get the Easter Island heads onto an island?
2,000 miles off.
Nothing else around,
Nothing.
and the island's like tiny, or
Yeah, it's like you can walk the length of the island in 3 hours or something. Like
right? So you got this tiny island in the middle of the ocean. There's no like mountains, I presume.
I think there is on that island specifically. It's called Rapa Nui. It's yeah, there is, I think, a few mountains. but
Okay, well, I was thinking there's a rational explanation there. I know nothing about this whole situation, Easter Island, but like, could they have carved the heads out of the mountain? Because what you're telling me, I'm thinking of a blank slate of grass, and there's these big heads. Like, how the fuck did they get there?
They reckon that there's, Graham Hancock says that they would have had boats, prehistoric boats, but because modern day archaeologists haven't found any remnants of those boats, they couldn't have done it that way. But that's because that was like, you know, what, 10,000, well, maybe not 10,000 years. Yeah, actually 10 or 12,000 years ago, they reckon. So of course there's not going to be the remnants of wooden boats with erosion and everything. So because they haven't found, and here's his kind of point.
Not just that, like, I thought like cavemen were not that long ago. in terms of,
They're like 6,000 years old, right?
But that's what I mean. You know, if that's
No, sorry, not cavemen are 6,000 years old. It's like Neanderthals. Actually, no, do you know what it is? 6,000
but like
years
boats
old.
are not that. They're not that old of a thing. Boats are relatively new in terms of like the evolution of the human race. So like,
this is where it gets so interesting. Though. This is where it becomes absolutely fascinating, because the whole argument is that
if I can take some acid now or something.
absolutely, just to get the mind going. The whole argument is that archaeologists say the human timeline started 6,000 years ago. Started off as Neanderthals, cavemen, discovered fire, discovered stones, discovered the wheel, whatever, and the evolution starts from there. Graham Hancock comes in and he's like, there was a cataclysmic. Say it.
Cataclysm.
Yeah. Okay.
Cataclysmic. It's all right. It's a safe place.
I'm not going to try that again.
Try it again. No. Let's pause.
Cataclysmic.
No. You're adding this extra melistic thing to it.
Catalysm.
Cataclystic. Is that it? Cataclysm.
Yeah. So I said
Say it.
cataclysm.
Let's go.
Oh,
There we go. And apparently there was this event that happened between like 11,900 years ago and 12,900 years ago. And prior to that event, there was like ancient civilizations that had super advanced technology. And this is where it becomes really interesting, because they talk about how we perceive ourselves as this super advanced civilization, but in reality, they just took a different route for technology. And they're talking about how they built the pyramids and how there's this like precision technology that cuts these structures in perfect symmetry and creates the pyramids and everything else, and it allows them to be able to build these mega structures, right? Which essentially we can't do in today's timeline. But this event wiped.
We can or we can't do it.
We can't. Well, maybe with like gigantic machinery, but to find out the way they done it without the machinery that we have, essentially. So he talks about how all of this was wiped out, and because there was just this mega event that destroyed everything, the humans basically had to start again from this like 6,000-year-old timeline, and it goes through it all in the TV show as well. But I didn't watch the new season. I listened to I watched season 1 and I listened to his podcast, both podcasts with Chris Williams, and I've re-listened to a Joe Rogan one.
What's crazy is the fact that you can even put together any sort of rational story for 10,000 years in the past. Like, how do you put together, right, this is what I think happened based off this information? That's crazy, man. I can't even tell you what I did last week. Honestly.
And that whole argument that Hancock puts forward about prehistory and an ancient civilization, and he likes this whole notion of a lost civilization, the lost city of Atlantis.
Mm-hmm.
But
that's super interesting as well, I think.
Absolutely. But archaeologists, because they can't, there's no evidence, concrete evidence to say that happened, they dismiss it. But like, he's not saying there definitely was. He's kind of saying, what about the notion of what we don't know? So there could be the possibility of this.
What's the main? How would a city in the sea even come about? Do you know the backstory?
It's not a city in the sea, actually. It's on land,
right?
And it
got submerged.
Yeah, it's an actual place,
right?
And the maps and stuff reference it to be. What was the name of the man who was talking about it? Polo? No, it wasn't Polo. It begins with P though.
Perry Reese maps. Is that what you're on about?
It's potentially, but
the guy with the trident.
No,
Poseidon.
We just go to Gdańsk and we can see the thing. No, it's not. It's not Poseidon.
Right.
I can't remember.
Thought I had it there.
He puts it on a map, and it's somewhere apparently in Africa, and it's inland, and it's not just Atlantis isn't one specific city, if I'm not mistaken. It's an
Africa.
It's a civilization.
Yeah, it's a civilization. It's numerous settlements that is kind of under one name, and the specific city is apparently, from what he says, in Africa, and it wasn't underwater, but it got submerged within the.
This is completely off topic, completely random, but we're talking about underwater stuff. You know Nino Chilton, the alpaca farms out in Knockvicker. He does scuba diving. Their son Nino, he does scuba diving, and they had a jazz concert in an underwater cave deep in the sea. So cool. So basically, like, the cave is underwater, so it's got air. So they dive down with all this jazz equipment, speakers, all this stuff, and they had a full like concert. I don't know where it was, some underwater cave.
I'm pretty sure he's in around Norway.
Shouts out to Nino. I'm bigging you up here. But it was super cool. Like I was talking to him recently, and he mentioned it. He's like, "Oh yeah, I just did a concert in an underwater cave." I was like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, it's on YouTube." So I looked it up. There was no audience, but they live streamed it out with these long cables. It's such a cool thing to say. Like, when you talk about life experience, like, oh yeah, I had a concert in an underwater cave and I was part of that. So fucking cool. Yeah, it was the first one actually. Yeah,
that's crazy.
Really cool.
To be the first in something as sick in the sea.
So cool. It's really that's the kind of stuff I'm craving. Is a bit more of that unique life adventure.
The history stuff is pretty fascinating.
Oh, it's fascinating
because again, we don't know anything. Like you're saying, how do you know anything apart from what
you're told? Yeah,
and you'd have to question that, because how do you know what we're being told is even?
That's why it's just so simple. Just focus on yourself, and then that's it.
Yeah.
Easy.
So, guys, before we wrap up, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Where do I see you?
I have no idea, but I do know that who I am, internally, is going to be leveled up a lot higher. Like my mission, my clarity, focus, drive, purpose, not being held back from as much shit from previous life experiences, a lot more focus and determination with anything I put my mind to, and definitely in some realm of helping people and being very connected to what I'm doing right now, the stuff I talked about in this podcast, putting my voice out there, spreading whatever it is I want to talk about, and connecting with people who are like-minded and want to see a similar change in their life, because that's what I feel like I've been put on this planet to do, is to really just inflict positive change through my own life experience. So I don't know what I'm going to be doing modality-wise practice-wise, but I know it's going to be something in line with everything I just said, and that's where I see myself doing in 5 years, but to a much higher level, hopefully with some more money in the bank. That's the plan.
Geez, I'm thinking of my answer. If you asked me this a year ago, I would have had the absolute blueprint. But right now, it's a little bit more of looking for clarity of the exact path. All I know is that what I'm doing right now is the stepping stones in the right direction, as in the coaching, the avenue I'm going down, stepping into a lot more of like an introspection space. That stuff is really appealing to me, and I can see myself continuing that road. Where that leads to in 5 years is not entirely certain, but I do know that I'm going to be continuing this path where the coaching is the main center point for career, the introspection is the main center point for development, and I presume going off them two things, something in 5 years is going to pop up. It's just a matter of fact. I think there'll be a correlation between the two. I'm not entirely sure what.
Now your turn, sir. Where do you see
Carlo.
yourself in 5 years?
I personally, I'd like to see myself I'd love to have a base in Boyle. That's
Okay.
what we're kind of at the moment. Economy wise, it's crazy. There's not there's not even options to really buy in Boyle. We want to be based in Boyle because we're fortunate enough that we can, live in a lot of places, but we choose to have a base in Boyle. But if that doesn't happen, I think we're going to be based in Europe, maybe France, Italy, Spain, somewhere like that. That's close to home because, again, we have connections with home.
You're set on buying?
Yeah, we didn't really think about this until maybe, I think COVID kind of brought us down to kind of like, oh God, might be able to go traveling. Not that we want to be traveling and moving around the whole time, but it's the option of being able to move around, and the online stuff gives you that freedom.
Mm-hmm.
So regardless of what we're doing or where we're doing, it's the whole notion of having the freedom and the lifestyle choice to move around. But I think in 5 years' time, I think ideally having a base in Boyle, being able to close the doors, 6 months traveling or 6 months based in Asia, somewhere like that. That kind of, and business-wise, maybe keep doing what we're doing. Unfortunately or fortunately, we're going to have to embrace AI, as we were saying, and just go from there. So I think
I like the idea of a base of operations. The only reason I asked about buying is because I listened to this online financial guru, and he was talking about how all the added costs that come with actually buying over renting, and how he actually, I don't think he owns a house, or he does for his own. It's another guy. He's had
rent
some.
where you live, buy what you can rent to others.
Yeah, like the passive income. Yeah.
But no, we're kind of at the stage again, 5 maybe.
I like the idea of owning something yourself. I think what they were talking about is how it's a depreciating asset, how people think it's something to invest in, is your own place, how it's going to get more money. But he was talking about, no, it really isn't when you factor in all these extra costs. But for the fact that, like, I own this, you cannot take this away from me for any reason because this is mine. That's that security that I'm looking for too. I've got a bit of a contrast compared to Boyle. For some reason, I've got a vision of a ranch in Costa Rica. It sounds completely fucking crazy. I don't know where this came from. This came to me in some sort of inspiration one time. I don't know why. I've never been to Costa Rica. I don't think about it. But that's what's there. Who knows, yeah.
Living abroad, though. Actually, I'll add that to my 5-year plan.
You're doing it right now, baby.
Still experiencing new locations.
Maybe
I believe.
Maybe next year we'll all meet up in
Asia.
Thailand.
Yeah.
How many countries you've done?
75.
Wow,
How many will be done in 5 years?
Well, it's not okay. Like, goal is 100 countries. That was always the goal, and we could have hit that, as I was saying to you, but we don't want to go somewhere for the sake of going somewhere.
We're going to get 76 before 5 years.
Well, listen, guys, thank you very much for coming on.
Pleasure.
This has been definitely the longest episode by far. Keane Smith's was, I think, 1 hour and 58 minutes, so we've beaten that by about half an hour.
Nice.
But thank you very much for coming on, both. Really enjoyed that chat. Talked about so much, and I hope anyone that's listened to it gets some value for it.
You're going to have to put timestamps. We went from
the
online coaching to ancient civilization. You know?
people were looking at it and think, what the fuck is this? That's a conversation, though. That's a good conversation.
Carlo, thank you so much.
Absolutely,
Again,
I really much enjoyed that.
Thoroughly enjoyed. Love these kind of conversations. So absolute pleasure. Would happily do one again in the future.
Absolutely, yeah. It was great.